Yo, 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 yo. What's up, what's up, what's up? Give up the rack. And hello to my fellow revolutionaries. You know who you are, and welcome to today's stream. We are going to be looking at some very interesting world affairs, I guess you would say. There's some chaos going on in France at the moment, so we'll check that up as a follow up to what we were doing like a month ago. Obviously, shit hasn't changed in France, despite the fact that they picked a new prime minister. It looks like they've gotten rid of him already, which is interesting, to say the least. But yeah, we're going to go there. We're going to go some other places. We're going to look at some Tony Abbott, which I'm sure everybody's really excited about, and get his thoughts on migration in Australia. And then we're just going to go around and do some various other topics that are important at the moment and are very current and topical. Voltateur's done the roll call already. Thank you very much. Yo, yo, yo. What's up? What's up? It's good to have you. And to anyone else who's listening, let me know who you are and where you're coming from. Yo, I'm here for the Onion Eater. What up, my pimp gangster poets? There it is. That's a lovely introduction, that is. And I feel nice and warm inside knowing that I'm a pimp gangster poet, as all of you are too, apparently. Now, if you can see in the top corner of my screen there, just behind my head and my chair, I've got the stream chat. And like that's as good as I can do for now, because there was requests yesterday to have the stream chat live so people can actually check it and not actually have to go down the path of being, accosted by Discord, and they still want to see what's going on in the chat, the stream chat on Discord. So I've tried to put it in there, but like I'm running out of room to put shit up, like in terms of chats and all that sort of stuff. So I will advance one day and get better at all of this sort of stuff. But until then, just know that that's what that is. And someone's put a GIF in the stream chat, and that's why it looks like that. Alex is back for another round. What up? How are you? And welcome. We're going to be doing some international news today, as I said. And yeah, if you are joining us from... Yeah, actually, Alex, where are you from? We've got people from NZ here at the moment, Australia. Let us know whereabouts you are geographically, geopolitically, so we can... If you're wondering why I'm looking to the side as well, I'm trying to just monitor the chat. And if you're joining us from TikTok and you're getting used to this type of stuff now, I would highly encourage, there is my link to my YouTube page in the description. If you actually want to watch the videos that we're watching as well, you can join YouTube and then actually see what we're doing. But if you just like the sultry sounds of mystery, then by all means, just listen to me every time I talk and do stuff. You are from the US of A, and welcome. Welcome to our international audience. It's good to have you. So, without further ado, let's get into some international politics, shall we? And let's start off with what the hell is going on with France. Now, if you remember from like a month ago, we were watching the turmoil in France. So it wasn't even a month ago. It was like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago max. We were looking at what was happening in France. And France was in the middle of like large-scale protests, let's call them, against the system, against the political establishment. And that was pretty much due to the fact that the political system has come to a bit of a halt in France. And there is careerist, radical centrist neoliberals in there trying to bring down austerity measures on the French population because they're not meeting their debt to GDP requirements as an EU member. And so they were basically going to propose all these cuts, and they're like the French, as the French do, they got up in arms and they were like, we're not gonna settle for massive cuts to our social security. And so they got pretty angry about it. Indoctrinate Nathan's in the house. Yo, 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 yo. And you know what's funny? I can't see your other comment. I can see it on YouTube. Give up your sovereign territories. But I can't see it on my monitoring system. That's funny. I wonder why. You're the first person that's ever been censored on my monitoring system. I don't know why, but you're on the list, Dr. Nathan. You've been done. Ninja Nurse, yeah, boy. We welcome our digital immigrants. Yes, we welcome everyone to this stream. And we are a motley crew. How was the rest of your stream yesterday in Dr. Nathan, by the way? I hope it went well. Because it started off with a very, very interesting cartoon yesterday. I thought that was pretty cool, I must admit. But yeah, if you are joining us but you can't speak on the socials, then I will see you in the stream chat on Discord. So yeah, we're gonna get into this, but like, yeah, just for the context, remember this time, not even a month ago, France was up, people were going crazy. It was around the time that Nepal was going through its dynamic shift and they overthrew their government there. And like just after the Indonesian protests, so people were flying one-piece flags and stuff on the streets of Paris as they were protesting against their evil government. And then this guy came in. His name is Leconnu. I think that's how you pronounce it properly. But I will brush up on my French, I swear. Yeah, he was put into the position like a few weeks ago, and he's already resigned. So let's just get a bit of an understanding of what's going on there, because I think France is kind of a good measuring stick potentially for just what is going on in the liberal democratic world at the moment from a Western sense. People are just not happy. And while other, the English speaking liberal democratic societies out there, they would just kind of cop stuff on the chin, like the UK, like they're upset, but they're not going to hold their government to account. They'll just complain about it and threaten to bring in someone like Nigel Farage. But the French, like, they're like, no, if you try to bring in austerity measures and bring in your neoliberal policies, we're going to bring you down, and that we're going to protest until that happens. And so they just keep on slaying prime ministers over there. And now I think this is part of a larger kind of issue. If there's so many governments fail in quick succession under the French constitution, what they can do is they can justify calling a new election, like a snap election. So I think the French are moving towards doing a snap election where like the president now, so Emmanuel Macron, will actually have to call it out and say, look, the government's just not working. I'm calling fresh elections. And this kind of works in a number of senses for the radical centrists and works against the right wing, I think, in France, because Marine Le Pen, her party, she's the head of it, but she can't be in the elections at the moment because she's recently been embroiled with some affair. I think it was like up for some type of embezzlement of EU funds. And so like she's suspended from running for president. So she can't do it. So this actually helps someone like Macron, I think, or Macron's party anyway, if they call a snap election based on this prime minister going down, because then there's no threat from the right wing potentially in France. So it's interesting to think. There is a list. Israeli accent. Yeah, it was really good. Jungle Potatoes and I had a good chat and a long dive into Burkina Faso and what's happening on the ground there. Interesting. Also got into some Afro liberation music history for a bit. Nice. Yeah, he had some interesting music playing on in the background when I was there. So nice choices. Don't claim sovereignty. The cops will raid your firearms for having an opposing opinion. Ain't no right like an EU right. Hey ho. Yeah, and they definitely know how to protest over there in the land of the French. They definitely know how to do it. So let's just enough with my banter, and I'll give you some context as to what's going on there, and we'll jump between the multitude of issues that we've got going on today, shall we? Let's have a look. Put my headphones in.
Welcome to The World Today here on France 24. I'm Stuart Norval. The main headline for you today, that news coming into us around about 15 minutes ago now, that the new French Prime Minister, who was only appointed around a month ago, has quit. He apparently handed his resignation into Emmanuel Macron, the president here, and that was accepted. It was just after last night he named his new cabinet, but obviously He decided that it was going nowhere, and that was the only action he could take. We're going to be following that main story for you. We're going to talk shortly to our reporter Antonia Kerrigan, who is at the Republican Party headquarters in Paris, and we'll also talk here on set to our French political expert Mark Perelman. All that coming up for you very shortly.
I'm excited. Are you excited? All right, it's coming up shortly. Oh yeah. This is France 24 English. I don't know if other people get this in their algorithm.
So when he came to power as France's new Prime Minister almost a month ago, Sébastien Lecornu promised a rupture with the past. But as he named his new government last night here, many members of his cabinet remaining in post. It was a starkly similar list of familiar names taking those key posts, leading many here to wonder just how long his new government will last this time. Well, the answer came, well, around about 12 hours later, because, in fact, it didn't even survive very far anyway into the next day. We've heard in the last 15 minutes that Sébastien Lecornu has offered his resignation to Emmanuel Macron, the president, and that Emmanuel Macron has accepted it. Now, in the meantime, the Republican Party, many of their members were included in that cabinet, had decided to meet around about now, in fact, to decide whether they were going to be part of that government or not, because they felt that it was just too similar to the previous two governments, both of which fell almost at the first hurdle. Well, our reporter Antonia Kerrigan is at the Republican Party's headquarters in the centre of Paris. Antonia, I was due to ask you whether the Republican Party are going to continue within this government, whether they will be at the cabinet meeting, which is scheduled a little bit later on this afternoon. But it turns out that presumably there will not be a cabinet meeting anymore because the government has already fallen.
Well, it seems that the threat by Bruno Retailleau, the party leader, late last night, less than 2 hours after the government announced his threat to pull the plug, led Sébastien Lecornu to decide, that's it, I'm throwing in the towel, this is going nowhere. He, of course, called this meeting at 11:30 this morning, and, you know, the French press are all gathered here because the question was, is Bruno Retailleau's Republican Party going to be what topples this government within 24 hours of it being announced before any of the...
Here's some context, all right? Again, they have a system at the moment where they have a parliamentary system, and there's three kind of major parties, I guess, that are seemingly trying to come together to make some form of a government. And they've had to do alliances, obviously, coalition building, to get enough persons on the floor to be able to pass legislation and form cabinet. And they haven't been able to do that because the parties cannot agree among really agree to do anything. And they have very stark opinions about what to do with the economy. So the French economy is in trouble, so they keep saying. They're in the EU, and so they've got commitments to make as an EU member state in terms of like running the economy, and like especially about how much debt that they can take on, and like what plans they have to eradicate their debt issues, all that type of stuff. And so these three groups, these three large sections of the French parliament can't really agree on much. And so they try to form coalitions where they can to try and actually form some type of a cabinet and to allow the prime minister to do something. But it was on very, very shaky ground. And it would seem that one of the main parties that was going to form part of this coalition, they didn't want to support the prime minister anyway. So they were in the cabinet, chosen by the prime minister, but they didn't want to be there anyway. And so they were already straight away after the cabinet was formed, they were kind of like, yeah, but we might not actually do what the prime minister wants us to do. And then he didn't even wait 24 hours. He was like, well, they're not going to help, then I'm out. I don't want this shitty job. Somebody else can have it, basically. And that seems to be pretty much the long and the short of it. So I think they're just going to go to a snap election now. The French, hey, we'll see what happens. Avalava's in the house. Yo, what's up? Time for another fun-filled, maniacal and myopic mishap of mayhem. I love the alliteration. May we make much movement into militancy of many mates. Give up your capitalist subservient rock. Yo. Wow, nice craftsmanship with the language there. I do appreciate that, actually. And you're even coming up. If you can see here, you're coming up on the actual main screen now. I've tried to fulfill requests in terms of making sure the stream chat can get into the into the action somehow. So you're popping up. We're loving it. Everyone can appreciate that now. Your father was a hamster and your mother smelt of elderberries. Oh my God. Monty Python references. Yeah, that's Afrobeats. Oh, wait, you're talking about your music before. What's going on in the Afrobeat scene is really revolutionary. Got to get more into it someday. It's like he got into office, opened the file to the first page, took one look, and went, "Nope, I don't want my name anywhere near this." You seen Nepal lately? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, there was definitely a like, no, thank you, I'm out of here. I'm sus on F24. They do okay reporting on Europe and America, but they really suck when it comes to Asia and the global South. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. It's good to have their English translation, to be honest. Um, but yes, it does seem like he was just like, no, thank you. I don't have to be part of this at all. Like, and immediately. But I don't know if this is part of the larger plan. Like I was saying before, he was from Macron's party. And I do believe that their tactic now is like they see the writing on the wall is that like no one's going to be able to form a government, and let's get in and do this before Marie Le Pen, I think, comes back, like, and before the nationalists come back. And it's funny because these radical centrists, as I like to call them, they're more fearful, I think, of the right wing takeover at the moment than a left wing. For so long, they've been scared of a left wing, populist movement like the socialist parties and the communist parties, which are very ingrained in the French political system. But at the moment, they seem to be more scared of national, like they seem to be the coordinated threat now. It's not workers' movements through like, workers' political parties. Like I said, your socialist parties and your communist parties, which they definitely do have in France. But it's the right wing populists that they're the most fearful of, because they think that they probably do have a chance of taking government, and they're worried about what's going to happen to the economy. If a right wing government comes in. Oh, I see it, and my first thought is a jestful scheme. A jestful scheme. Hey, what are you going to write there? Ha! That's pretty fucking funny, actually. Huh? Hey, what is it? What does it say? Huh? I can't see it. Very good. You're in a playful mood today, I see. I hope the French are feeling your vibes. I hope nobody touches the stream chat for a while, so that gets to stay there, let's just say.
Ministries have even had their official handovers, and, well, Sébastien Lecornu, I suppose, has outplayed the Republicans in the sense that they no longer have that power, because the government they were about to knock the wind out of the sails of no longer exists. It's very, very hard to know what's going to happen next. Certainly when we were covering the announcement of the government last night, a lot of the comment and the questions were just how long can such a government survive? The Macronian centrist camp doesn't have anything like a majority in Parliament, and they're not even the largest wider grouping. With the votes of the Republicans on side, they also, to be fair, don't have a majority either. That said, the left-wing group don't have a majority, and nor do the far-right National Rally. So it's difficult to know where the centre of gravity...
So they can't help themselves? Like when a right-wing party gets in, they're just like, it's a far-right party. It's like, is it far-right? Like, what does far-right mean? Exactly. But the fear-mongering is strong when it comes to anyone who's not in the radical centre. It's all those evil left-wing and right-wing working-class people. They're the real problem, not the neoliberals that have been in for ages and have brought in policy that has destroyed the economy. No. You got to watch out for those, right-wing and left-wing populists. When working people to get together and want to kick out the radical centre, it's those ones. They're the far right and the far left. They're the evil ones. Yeah, not the neoliberal politicians that have destroyed the world over the last 5 decades. No. They're fine. They're good for business.
lies then what the next government is likely to be. Emmanuel Macron has been criticised for repeatedly appointing the same type of profile, the same centre-right types of person as Prime Minister, and getting the same results every time. Well, this time, the last one lasted about 10 months, and
Trump has made it really hard to be right-wing outside of the US. That's interesting. Wait, dude, the hat's better. I wonder if I can sit up and wear it properly. That's fucking hilarious. See, this is why I didn't want to put the fucking stream chat on there. I knew this would happen. I knew it. Yeah, look, he's made it hard to be right wing, but like he's also developed that style of right wing populist politics. I would say people like, you know, Farage in the UK. Like, I don't think he would have been really as emboldened or energized if it wasn't for someone like Trump. Same with, like, you know, not that she's actually won anything from it exactly, but someone like Pauline Hanson gets more, I think, more political limelight now. She gets more of a voice because she parrots that Trumpian kind of message. And so, like, why they haven't, it hasn't helped because it's this is what I'm saying, that the radical center is now on high alert just in case Trump starts, or Trump-esque politicians start popping up all around the place and taking over the political establishment. They're on high alert. I don't know if it's stopped those people from getting any power. Like the AfD, I'm pretty sure it is, in Germany, the Alternative for Deutschland. Like, they did pretty well, like better than I think they've ever done before. And again, I think that might be thanks to Trump as opposed to not. But like the forces of the political establishment, which is what I call, the radical center, they are coalescing around the right wing now to stop them from taking power anymore. Before they were just like, you know, just the crazies. And now they're like a fighting force, right? Desire to know more intensifies. That's so good. I would like to know more. It is a gift. And it is. Now, fuck. Now I can't talk in this channel without moving the images. Yeah, suck, dude. Hey, you can't have it both. That's why I said, like, I hope no one talks in the stream chat for a while. I could scroll up. I could do this. But, like, am I gonna do that? How long will I do it for? Nobody will know. It will be a complete mystery. The floodgates are open. Yeah, I know. This has been dangerous. Nothing shits me more than YouTube comments saying, Pauline for PM, like she's ever going to give up her Senate spot, her sweet, sweet Senate candy. No, I don't think so. It's a pretty cushy kind of role that she's got. She can just agitate from that position. And she has extreme parliamentary privilege to agitate as well, right? She can just be a thorn in everyone's side and not actually have to do anything constructive.
Struggled to get anything through Parliament. This one lasted, well, a month, but almost a month, but didn't have a government until yesterday, and indeed his government was never officially instated, so never got a government, never got that far. He said that he came to power saying that he was going to take the 49.3 article of the Constitution off the table for his government. That means he wasn't going to force any legislation through Parliament. That meant he set his government the almost impossible task of having absolute majorities for any legislation they would pass. That's almost impossible in this Parliament, certainly given the level of reaching across the aisle that he ended up doing. You know, the only allies he took on, that he brought into his camp, were the Republicans. Even with them, he didn't have a majority, and clearly they also didn't want to see their votes for that government taken for granted. So it's hard to know where any incoming government now can find a different solution, unless, of course, Emmanuel Macron looks to appoint someone from outside of his political camp, as there have been repeated calls to do. He has refused on every occasion. So we'll be following this closely for the rest of the day. A lot's happened in the last 24 hours. A lot more could happen in the hours to come.
Yeah, you're right, Antonio. We're just hearing, in fact, that Sébastien Lecornu says he's going to make a declaration at Matignon, which is his official residence, at 10:45 French time. So that's in about 40 minutes. Just explain to us, Antonio, why, with the Republican Party, just why the Republican Party is so important, or was seen as being so important to this government as it tried to forge its way forward.
Well, the last government was based around, the last two governments, in fact, were based around the idea of a common base in Parliament. That's the idea of having not just one party, but the Macronist camp plus the Republicans was a slightly wider base to count on for votes. And the deal was the Republicans, since they were being taken for granted, but they pushed and they said, give us a third of the ministerial positions and we'll support this government. But we're not subscribed to this government. We don't owe this government our absolute loyalty. So give us clout and we will provide support. In the end, you know, the Republicans, they don't have enough seats to ensure an absolute majority to the Macronist camp, but they were also somewhat bridging a gap. And this isn't something that the centrist bloc was saying, but you can also consider that they were bridging a gap perhaps as well to the far right, that there might have been some forms of legislation that they might have been able to get far right support on by having individuals like Bruno Retailleau, who's very much on the right-hand flank of the conservative right-wing party.
Isn't that interesting? Okay, when they really need to, though, and they need to reach out to someone to get rammed through their economic policy, which the French people fucking hate, which is austerity measures. They need to make massive cuts to the budget in order to, you know, fix their debt crisis. If they really need to, though, the radical centrists will reach out to the right-wing parties to ram through an agenda that fucks up the working class. Isn't that a surprise? Eh? Yeah, at the end of the day, we don't want the right wing there, but if anyone's going to help us destroy government services, it'll be the right wing. Double-ended dildo caps incoming. Oh, scissors. Chop, 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 chop. Eh? Thank you. Thanks, everyone. My God. What have I done? What have I done? Bonjour. Ha ha ha. Pincher's mustache. Eh? Like this. Twirls mustache. I need some wax. Wings of cheese. Welcome to the stream. I hope you're doing well. We are looking at some French politics at the moment. I don't know if I'm going to go through much more of this, but it is interesting to see that we were just speaking about this like literally 3 weeks ago, I reckon, at the height of the Nepalese protests and just subsequent to the Indonesian protests that were going on. You had people rising up in France demanding an end to the austerity that was being proposed, and so they came. They crushed a prime minister and they had to step down, and then they put a new one in, and he's been there for literally a few weeks trying to sort out a cabinet in the background. He's announced his cabinet and said, okay, this is going to be the government moving forward, and then bang, he's been chopped. He's resigned because he just can't get anything through, and he literally gave it a crack for like 12 hours as a new government before he resigned. So all I'm really wanting to highlight here, I think, by looking at this stuff and keeping an eye on it, because it's obviously not everyone's flavor, but like, is democracy, as we know, liberal democracy, is it fucked? Is it screwed? Is this the sign? Like, this is one of the birthplaces of liberal or bourgeois democracy, and it has been kind of a bastion for how to carry out liberal society for the last 250 years. There's been really two centers of it, I would say. It was the Americans and the French. They were the bourgeois powers that showed the world how to do democracy and freedom, so like liberal society. And they've come to a complete standstill. In the US, they have a two-party system, so their standstill really culminates in the fact that it's just a one-party system, that like oscillates between kind of the left wing sections, the lighter sections, and then like the hardcore kind of conservative or right wing section. But it's really just one conglomerate because everybody is in on the big fuck fest that is the American like donor system or the lobby system. So it's completely beholden to corporate interests, and it's really just a political system for the corporate class. And like, you know, large scale moneyed interests, not always corporates, sometimes just individuals with heaps of money. But like the French system, like it's really diversified. There's heaps of parties, they've got all this stuff, but because it's so diversified, it's in complete shutdown. Like it's just locked down. And in the face of, you know, the authoritarianism that is out there, like look at Viktor Orban's Hungary, or what's happening in, I guess you could say, in China, or you could say potentially in Russia, or places that have illiberal democracies, as some people like to call them. Like, is this where it's going? Is this the death knell of liberal democracy? Is this how it all ends, with these parliaments that are just completely locked up? They can't form governments properly. And then everyone just loses faith in the system. Some authoritarian comes along and goes, "Oh, fix it." And then everyone's like, "Ah, yeah, okay, fine. Just let him have a crack. Or her. Let her have a crack." And then at the sake of everyone's like liberties and participation in the political system, as long as they just fix up this mess. Is this how it goes down? Is this how the history books will be written? Does anyone else see the irony of the French complaining about their debt and loan situation after decades of them forcing other nations to take on crippling IMF loans? Seems like that. Just wish they were in charge of Europe again. Yeah, look, I get that. You know, the irony is kind of delicious. I get it. But you know, the people that suffer in France when they have a debt crisis, unfortunately, though, is just like the people they would have subjugated as a colonial power or an imperial power. It's not the people that were at the top of those colonies, the opportunists and the people that sold out their own people to the French oppressors. It's just working people. So the people that are suffering really in France at the moment from crippling debt is just working class people. So it's like, yeah, it's like boomerang colonialism. It's come back again, and now their economy is being screwed over by imperialist forces. But like, I'm using Lenin's term imperialism here, which is the imperialism of large corporations that move around the world, crippling economies. So like, yeah, they're getting crushed by imperialism, corporate imperialism now, the highest stage of capitalism. They're getting crushed by it. But yeah, again, it's just unfortunate because, you know, all of the richies, all the corporate types, they'll be protected and insulated from the ravages of austerity and the, you know, the general cost of living crisis that all these people are experiencing. They'll be completely insulated by that. These radical centrists and their donor class. Bet it'll be just the people in France that suffer. But like, you know, is this the end of democracy? Is this how it goes? Yeah, I mean, hey, it is good. It is a good thing though, because when people see how much suffering fascistic leaders cause and the compromises they make for oligarchs, I mean, the people will realize. See, that's an interesting take, right? It's definitely the defeatist take. As in, like, you know, let them win, let them take over, and then the people will see how bad it is, and then they'll have to fight back, because people don't usually get on the front foot. They wait for things to get bad and then they react. But like, so much goes down Wings of Cheese. So much destruction has to happen before we get that, you know, that rebalance, that threshold hit, and then people fight back against the system. And like, you could even argue in a surveillance capitalist world, like, you know, this isn't like the 1920s anymore. Like, fighting it back against the machine in the 21st century, like a machine that monitors you all the time. It knows your most intimate details and habits, like down to, you know, some people, even their heartbeat. on a regular basis if they've got the right technology, like a Fitbit or something. Like the surveillance world of fighting back against the fascistic machine is going to be a very different affair. Very, very different affair, if you know what I mean. As all the founders of the liberal world order are dying off, and the new ones don't know how to manage the machine. So now it's all coming off the rails. It is definitely coming off the rails. Hassan made a good point with it's not rail-like. He said people are starting to realize what is happening slowly and more, and it's a good thing, even if it is a long time. Yeah, fair enough. I just don't know if I hold that air of optimism there that like people are noticing more and more, and it's a good thing. Like people also, this is the doom scroll generation. Again, surveillance capitalism is a force I don't think we've ever dealt with before as a working class or a large group of commoners. Like the means at the disposal for controlling conversation and controlling our data, like our habits and stuff like that, is immense. I just don't have the same faith. CC for the first message. Is that from yesterday, though? I can't see your CC from today if you just got done. Dilemmas. My wife's family comes from Yugoslavia, which makes my son Irish and Slav, possibly the most persecuted white blend you can get. Yeah, pretty much, right? Especially with the Irish side. But like the Slavs too, like the Europeans or the Western Europeans, they hate. Hey, they hate the Easterns, that's for sure. Fascism is when imperialism turns inward. Yeah. Where was I? Stream chat. That's where I should be. Are you proposing that the fringes have gamified democracy, hence no one can hold enough power to make any meaningful change? I don't know if they've gamified it. Like that was always there. I'm just saying, like, it's definitely been the way that the center has kind of held power and it's kind of oscillated between extremes of the center. And it's not that they've gamified democracy as much as that the entire system has become so unstable that like people believe in democracy and democratic kind of politics in a liberal sense, but they've lost complete faith in the system. And so the way that people are reacting via voting for parties is not moving towards a direction where people are like, oh, let's vote for this party because like let's allow them to have a go and see if they can manage the economy and bring things in, and then they vote them out in the next election if they don't like them. People don't coalesce around parties because they think they have the right answers anymore. People just vote on like tribal lines, and that's just completely leveled out anyone from being an effective majority in a lot of liberal democratic societies. And so like, yeah, they might have gamified democracy to a certain extent. And like maybe they are playing 3D chess with it and they understand, but it's destabilizing in the sense that, okay, people form government, but they're in minority and they can't do anything. So no one makes policies and no one can effectively govern. And is that how liberal democratic societies die? Not because, someone takes over from a violent coup, but like liberal democratic societies just come to a halt because no one can form coalitions, no one can agree on anything, no one gets enough of a majority to actually govern, and then somebody just comes in and sweeps up the leftovers and just promises something and say, oh, I'll fix it. Like Trump, like one of the most telling and scary kind of premonitions that he made, like just before he got swept into power. He was like, vote for me and you'll never vote again. You will never vote again. Like he made it quite clear, and like, blink and you miss it kind of stuff. But like he was really saying that like, I've got a plan and like I'm not going to let anyone become president again through normal means. Like I'm going to revolutionize the system. I'm going to redo American politics. And so, you won't have to worry about the instability that you've seen of people like flip-flopping between these radical centrists that don't really care about you. They don't care about America. Like none of that sort of stuff. They just like they're career politicians. They just play for the interests of their donors. But like I'll be your big strong man leader. I'll come in. I'll take my belt off, and I'll start whipping people into shape. But like you're gonna lose your democracy, and like so he's gonna sweep into power now. Is this how democracy dies? Because it fails, because it becomes ineffectual, as opposed to like people just stop liking it. Like the general population out there doesn't like it. It just fails to serve any function anymore. It's pretty crazy. That's weird. So the message you read wasn't showing for me, like on your screen. I couldn't see on mine. I assume no, I can monitor stuff now. So I'm monitoring stuff. That's why it was really weird. Like Dr. Nathan wrote something that I couldn't monitor before, which is quite strange for me. But yes, I can. The point about parties being materially weak is a great point, especially because the state, whilst it uses violence on its own people, if it doesn't have the support of the people or the ruling class, about parties being materially weak is a great point, especially because the state, whilst it uses violence on its own people, if it doesn't have the support of the people or the ruling class, point being is you can't use the hand over the carrot if the government is weak. That's interesting. Well, look, something's coming. Something's coming. Like the French are in a complete like stalemate situation at the moment. And if this is kind of just I don't know, an example of things to come, like we've had our positions over the last couple of decades, I would say, in Australian politics, really, where it's kind of been like, back and forth, minority governments, everyone's stabbing each other in the back, rulers not really ruling, all that sort of stuff. And so like we've come out of that recently, but we're rather a backwater kind of country in the grand scheme of things. We're not a France, we're not in America. So, did we learn any lessons from that? I don't think we did. I think everyone just got sick of it, and they got sick of the coalition, and so they gave Labor a crack, and then they gave Labor a majority, a massive and substantial majority, because like the coalition still couldn't get their shit together. So it wasn't by some stroke of political genius as much as it was like people were sick of the instability after a while. But like it seems like they're really going through the middle of their instability reign at the moment, and Trump's not going to wait for his instability reign to take a hold of America, really. Not that they would with a one-party system, but he's just going to cancel American democracy altogether by the look of it. It's interesting. Aussie politics is akin to Donald Sutherland screaming in the Body Snatchers. I don't know the reference, but hit me up with a link if you want me to get the context. But yeah, like keep an eye on the French situation. Again, I think it's important, and it's emblematic of what is happening, I think, in the Western world at large. And are people losing complete faith in democracy? It doesn't bode well for visions that we might have in a stream like this or in a community like this, because if nothing else, we're looking to actually create a society that is more democratic. Like, a workers' style democracy society would be one where people actually get involved more politically, as opposed to just being like, man, this democracy stuff doesn't work. Let's just get in a strong person. Like, they'll fix it. That's not the solution, I don't think, for modernity and the advancement of civilization, to just be like, Curtis Yarvin style, and just be like, yeah, bring on the CEO king. I'd love to see some CEO king. That'd be great. We'll just run everything like a fucking corporation. Let's bring on, like, modern fascism in its 21st century sense. Let's break down the veil and just have the corporate sector really just run everything in their interests, and the state will back them up with extreme force and violence, violent oppression and coercion. Once we lose the democracy, then I think we're just going to get the fasci stuff, just the complete fasci stuff. But if everyone's lost faith in it, and it really does look like it doesn't work, everyone's like, you know what, maybe it doesn't work. Democracy. What's the point of having people involved in politics? Let's just give it over to someone else to tell us what to do. And the humans are definitely capable of that. We are a herd animal like that. Definitely inclined to just being told what to do and follow what everyone else is doing. It's unfortunate that the project couldn't go for longer. I've said it many times. I do think that this is a rare point in history where we get a chance to be part of the political structure, and people seem to be, losing faith in it and just ready to let it go. It's very unfortunate. Love these streams. We're getting philosophical early. We're not even waiting for the fucking afters. We're just getting down and dirty with it. Wings of cheese. All right, enough from the French. It's depressing. Then the French usually aren't like that. They don't make you depressed at all. All right, this one is interesting, and I'm assuming Avalava might be able to fill me in on this because I have not been following this one at all. But I think it's important for especially the Australians that are watching this. But it would seem that Australia and Papua New Guinea have signed up, and we've created Pacific NATO. Govern me harder, daddy. Yeah, I know, right? That's like people are inclined that way. Just like let somebody else do it. Like humans are naturally lazy politically. It's hard to be involved. Like the democratic societies, like when the Americans set up their democratic societies, they were like they had to do shit. They were local democracies, and you went to town meetings, you decided what to do, you rolled your sleeves up and you helped out. Like, people are pretty fucking lazy nowadays. They're just well-trained consumers by the capitalistic economy that we live in. They're like, man, do I have to do stuff? Really? Like, if we didn't have compulsory voting in this country, honestly, if we didn't have compulsory voting, I reckon, you wouldn't even get half of the population to turn up. Honestly. Mr. E, you should change the name of Revolutionary Pod to Cultural Marxist Foundation. Could you imagine? And our symbol will be a lobster. And Jordan Peterson can be there. Cultural Marxist Foundation. Look, we need multiple think tanks. Let's just have another think tank called Cultural Marxist Foundation. Could you imagine? Like how that would give a heart attack to all of the conservatives out there. I knew it. They're cultural Marxists. I knew it. And they've got a foundation. That's it. Society's finished. We're all done. The cultural Marxists are coming to get ya. Look, they're under your bed, just like the Reds. Now, moving over to things that are related to the Pacific. Australia and Papua New Guinea signed a landmark defense treaty. This is our territorial NATO, by the sound of it. Is this true? Have people been following this story? Like, I've seen clips of stuff here and there. But if we're signing up, Papua New Guinea, and we have linked our defense forces or our departments of war, as, Peter Hegseth would say, but let's just keep it with the defense forces for now. We have like a NATO-style treaty going on here. Is this true? Avalava, you've been typing for ages. The suspense is killing me. Can you just clarify whether I'm reading this properly? Actually, I'll let this Stephen Dzedzik from the Foreign Affairs. He's a Foreign Affairs reporter, and he looks like a Foreign Affairs reporter. Let's let him give us his 2 cents on this matter before we get Avalava's expert input. Better get Jordan Peterson on soon. Looks like he may die. He's been on death's door for intermittently for a decade now. He comes in and out. Better get him on soon. We don't even have to have him on. He can just be part of the symbol. We can put him up in the cross, and we can have him like in the background when we have talks at the Cultural Marxist Foundation. I haven't. Pretty wild. Didn't we occupy Papua New Guinea for a while after World War II? Yeah, I think they've always been kind of just like a, unofficial satellite state, a protectorate, let's say. We definitely exploited them for labor, right? Yeah, I'm not sure what this one means. Australia is close to PNG, so we are tied to each other. We are still very subservient to current hegemonic power. It smells like there's some things ruminating behind closed doors. I assume PNG was threatened, or Albo is advising them that Oz will protect them. But protect them against who? The US? China? Hey? I'm sure it's China. Like, look at what's happening in the region. Remember we watched the thing with Voltatour's people, and they're going to set up a FBI legat in Wellington. Hey, and we got a Five Eyes Nation Australia now, like promising to protect PNG just in case anything happens. Like who? Like who's going to come after them? The Indonesians? I don't know, man. I reckon it's solidifying our security interests in the region, so the Chinese can't come in like down and do any more I don't know, deals with them, I guess you would say. And we're going to start shoring up our relations after we started backing away from them before. Let's listen to what they say, and then we can start speculating on this one.
This is an historic day, and it's difficult to disagree. When you look at the text of the treaty, what becomes very clear is that Australia and PNG have made serious strategic commitments to one another. Now, this has been reported on before, but of course it's one thing to get an early draft, it's another thing to get the document in black and white. And that treaty has now been released, as promised, by the Australian government. It's up on DFAT's website, allowing everyone to go through it line by line. The language around those strategic commitments is pretty significant. Both sides say that an armed attack on the other nation would represent a threat not just to the security of both nations, but also to the broader Pacific, and they promise to act together to meet the common danger. Now, of course, there is the usual rider that it would have to be in line with constitutional processes in both countries. So as you'd expect, there are a few caveats around that, but this is language not radically dissimilar to what we see in other agreements that Australia struck before, including its treaty with the United States. And it makes it very clear that both countries are telling each other not only are they the #1 security partner of choice, but also they would give serious consideration to a joint response should the other face an attack. So it's a big step for both countries. It's perhaps a particularly big step for PNG, which for years has talked about friends to all, enemies to none. James Marape is keen to say today that he's certainly not trying to make enemies out of anyone, be that China or anyone else. But when it comes to security, they've moved away from non-alignment. They're now saying very clearly Australia is at the top of that tree.
I know you've been able to go through the treaty dialogue now. What are some of the main provisions that you've noticed in there?
Look, beyond that language around the mutual defence language, I think it's worth noting just how many serious commitments have been made by both sides, particularly by Australia, to not only increase interoperability, but also work towards essentially Australia providing the defence material, the equipment, the firepower that PNG needs to become a more formidable.
So, like, PNG is our Israel. So like when they need something, we just provide them with everything, all the gear, the personnel, the hardware, the software, you name it. And we'll look after you, don't worry. Could you imagine? Oh, Jag's in the house. Tardy but hardy. Hey, excellent. Glad to hear it. I hope Albo read more than one page of the treaty, unlike other treaties he's skimmed. Ninja Nurse. Last week, every journalist was talking about how this was one of Albanese's biggest failures. Now they're all acting like they knew it all along and they never lost hope. Yeah, that's interesting, actually. Yeah, Albo is still playing the liberal democratic game, like capitalism light, with 20% less austerity. That's pretty funny, actually. Hey. 20% less austerity. The treaty allows Australian military to do whatever they want in PNG. It's like a cuck train. Big fish eating smaller fish. That's eating the smaller fish. That's crazy. So it just allows us to run riot over there. But then also, whenever they need something, hey, we can just supply them with arms. Rural PNG fighters have been fighting in Indonesia. As noted by FJ and his producer, Indonesia have mean getting closer with China. I seriously hope this isn't the flashpoint. Ah, so it's like proxy war stuff. Ah, okay. That's interesting. So they're our proxy. That's scary, isn't it? PNG is going to need weapons and equipment, the kind Australia doesn't make. But you know, we buy them from America, but our boat doesn't like Trump. Yeah, okay. Okay then. Okay. It's all shaping up. It's all coming together now.
Defence Force, and for its part, of course, PNG is making serious commitments to Australia, not just strategically, but also in the defence recruitment space. So James Marape and Anthony Albanese have said today that up to 10,000 PNG citizens will join the ADF over coming years or decades. That's a big number. It's not clear whether Australia will ADF over coming have said today that up to 10,000 PNG citizens will join the ADF over coming years or decades. That's a big number. It's not clear whether Australia will be able to recruit that many.
Oh, I love Jeff in the house, brother. How are you? Welcome. We're going over some localized issues at the moment. We're trying to figure out if we've just signed up to some type of Pacific NATO here, and whether it seems like we've signed a treaty with PNG that an attack against one is an attack against all kind of thing, and we're going to jump in and protect them just in case anything happens. And it would seem that we're potentially using them as a proxy state, and China maybe using Indonesia as a proxy state. We're trying to figure out how it all happens. Yeah, we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. The plot thickens like a Seppo spreading Vegemite. The treaty allows... Okay, right, what? Rural PNG... I read that. Imagine this becoming the next small-scale Ukraine. The US fighting China vis-a-vis Australia, and PNG against Indonesia. The US has said the big wars will begin in 2027. Together, apes are strong. Yes, very good. Yes. The US has said the big wars. When did they say that? What are you quoting there, Avalaba? I would like to know more. Knowing more intensifies. Desire to know more intensifies. Can you see that? There's Rico. That's me. My desire to know more is intensifying. Tell me, please. The US Oz will fight China, Indonesia to the last PG. And that's heavy, man. That's heavy. But yeah, I wonder why they predict the 2027 time frame for the big wars. I guess we'll find out.
But nonetheless, that's a serious potential contribution, at the very least, from PNG that will help Australia deal with one of its main security challenges, which is simply the problem around recruitment, finding the able-bodied men and women needed to provide the defence that the nation needs in increasingly perilous times.
Yeah, could it fill some of those gaps? Stephen, sorry to interrupt you. Could it fill some of those gaps? What will it mean for Australia's recruitment efforts?
Yeah, well, look, it absolutely could fill some of those gaps. I mean, a lot of this will depend on exactly what structures are put around this, how quickly Australia can move, what eligibility requirements are put in place, and exactly, what level will have to be met. I don't think anyone is saying that we're going to see thousands of PNG citizens joining the ADF, in the next couple of years. I think this will likely take time to set up that pipeline, but it does provide a useful new avenue for Australia to find the people that it needs to defend the nation. They have managed to pick up recruitment rates recently, but it's off a pretty low base. It's still not nearly where the government wants it to be. So this could be a really important contribution towards that effort.
China's interest in this part of the world is well tabled and well known to both the Australian and Papua New Guinea leaders. What specifically...
They said it. They said the word China. Hey, everyone run away scared. They said China. Oh, that's why we need to do this, because somebody said China. I've heard that quote before somewhere. It was when America was trying to pivot to the Asian theater before BB started messing up the PR efforts. Very funny. Yeah. Hey, fucking BB. Screwing everything up. Just one source from a quick search. Reuters. Can't remember where I saw it originally. Yeah, that's interesting though, isn't it? He's planning, US Navy is planning for possible war by 2027. Isn't that funny? Because remember them all going off about China saying the same thing the other day? They were just like, look, China's coming. And they've planned, what was it that exactly what? The PLA were given a directive in the early 2000s by the previous leader to make sure that China was ready by 2027 to take Taiwan by an invasion force if necessary. They wanted to reunify China by 2027. Again, if necessary. And they were using, they're like, see, China wants to start World War III in 2027. And like you have this, the US Navy actually planning stuff. Like, and they're doing the exact same shit. China, Taiwan, and the PLA's 2027 milestones. Be prepared to be surprised. The loweinstitute.org. Let's have a quick look at this one. Oh, wait. It's going to fuck up my stream chat. Oh, man. What is this? Oh, Business Insider? Get fucked. No way. I ain't paying for that. I don't pay for anything, let's be honest. Let's use our skills. US Navy is planning for possible war by 27, when China expects it will be ready to invade Taiwan. Okay, so they're just copying whatever's... Look, China's going to be ready to do this. We got to be ready to do this. The US Navy has outlined a 7-year target plan to boost its readiness for war by 2027, with an eye on China, as Beijing ramps up its own military strength and the possibility of a Taiwan invasion looms. Oh, it's looming. It's Laura looming. There it is. Interesting. Okay, so that's like the general rhetoric. It's in response to China. These actions are all a conglomerate of war against China, and so they should be seen as combined, not separate. This includes the recent color revolutions in countries surrounding China. Look, you, Brian, stop it with your evil conspiracy theories. Okay, I'm watching you. Yeah, I know. I've seen it. It's actually on the list. If we get through to it, I do actually want to do that. Early start today. I was too busy watching Peter Credlin. I don't think it was an early start. I think I started at 11, as usual. I was too busy watching Peter Credlin. Well, mate, fucking, yeah. Do what you must. I'm sure it was entertaining. I think I started at 11 all the time. Maybe, oh my God. Are you coming from Western Australia? I was assuming that everyone has daylight savings or kicked into daylight savings, but we've just moved over the long weekend into daylight savings in New South Wales, so we might be technically earlier now. Yeah. Not sure if you're affected by that, Larp Jeff. Kind of wild seeing Australia cuckold a country. I wonder if we go to war, how many disloyal Aussie citizens will join World War III to train? Yeah, well, they're not going to. It's, you know, it's not going to happen. So it's going to have to be conscription. Let's be honest. This is a sub-imperial power, Australia, treating PNG like a vassal. This is the type of stuff empires do. The Ottoman Empire did stuff like this. They used Serbian knights to fight other Europeans. Here. WA here, yep. So that might be the explanation. We've moved forward an hour, so I'm not sure if you're jumped across with time zone stuff. Sorry, with daylight savings as well. But that might be why it appears earlier, potentially.
Did James Marape have to say about the likely response by China and other nations to the signing of this historic treaty?
Yeah, that's right. China's made it clear it doesn't love this pact. It's been careful in its criticism. It hasn't directly taken aim at either PNG or Australia, and it said that PNG has every right to sign agreements like this, but it's also said that PNG shouldn't do anything to compromise its independence and that nothing should be done to lock out third parties. In this case, of course, the third party, Catherine, is, of course, China, which Australia wants to make sure can't get any sort of security foothold in Papua New Guinea. James Marape, though, unsurprisingly, unsurprisingly, is very keen to say, and was very keen at the press conference today, to emphasise that he doesn't want to make an enemy out of anyone, let alone China. He still sees Beijing as a very clear and very important economic partner. His argument is that what this document does is it just formalises Australia's position as the #1 security partner. He would like Beijing to basically stick to the economic space. Whether Beijing's willing to do that or not, or would like to change that, particularly after Mr Marape eventually leaves office, is another question. But let's take a listen to what he had to say on this front, speaking to journalists in Canberra not that long ago.
This is not a treaty that sets up enemies, but consolidates friendships. And China we've been transparent. We have told them that Australia has become our security partner of choice, and they understand our alliances here. They have relationship elsewhere, including our own relationships. Other aspects of our relationship has never been compromised. Australia has been always a security partner of choice, just consolidating that space with no intent of creating enemies elsewhere.
Unsurprisingly, though, it's not just China that may at least have queries about this. Indonesia has already made a few pointed inquiries over the last few weeks of the Australian and the PNG side about exactly how this will play out. That doesn't mean that Indonesia is opposed to this. It just wants to get absolute clarity about how this will operate. Interestingly, James Marape said again today that his Defence Minister, Billy Joseph, will basically take a bit of a tour around the region, talking to countries like Indonesia, like China, about exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it, and also presumably trying to reassure them that this isn't aimed at any third parties. Of course, whether China takes that message on board, whether it believes it, is a separate question. But clearly, James Marape is aware that there's some sensitive terrain being traversed here, and he wants to make sure that by forming this ever closer friendship with Australia, he's not, by accident, putting other important partners offside at the same time.
The delicate nature of global diplomacy. Who would have thought? Agree with somebody? Yeah, my stream will be 8:30, not 9 now. China is too hot. Will be 8. Sorry, yes, 8, not 9 now. Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, it's a daylight savings issue. Not enough young people own land to motivate them to fight for it. That's a pretty good point, isn't it? Like, if you don't own anything, you don't have a stake in your country, because, like, you know, you live off subscription. Who cares? You know, I can go live somewhere else if I really need to. Maybe I can pay rent cheaper some other place. Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually. That's why ADF recruitment has fallen off a cliff. Yeah. Indonesia is probably... No, it's not that. It's because everyone's too woke. That's why. It's the woke mind virus. Everyone's soft. That's why. Indonesia is probably going to be next on Albo's diplomatic tour. Yeah. Indonesia is probably more worried PNG might want the other half of their island back. Hey. Stop that. This is diplomacy. It's not easy. This was laid out in Brian's recent video. Okay, found Brian's article on the above video. I do want to watch this. Yeah, because he talks about it. Like, I watched the opening 5 minutes and he's like, I've just written an article about this. And, like, you know, he goes into his usual spiel. But US sows chaos across Asia. Where does it say that? Yeah. Across Asia as it aims for China, hey? The US wouldn't do anything like that. They fight all their wars very transparently. Ninja knows, turning the frogs gay. Don't go to the newatlas.org unless you need tips on dating foreign women. Okay. Make sure you go to the right one. Got it. I wonder what Brian has to say about that. We should start trolling Brian and sending him the link to that. Imagine the response the ABC would have if China did the same thing we did to the PNG. I know, right? Could you imagine? Imagine how many times I'd have to say China in the report to make people scared. Every second word. China, 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 China. Just to scare people enough into taking this whole issue seriously. Where's Papua New Guinea? Yeah, that's definitely in Indonesia. Get Bali on side, and the younger latte sipping youngins will be siding up to fight. Oh my god. No, don't touch Bali. We're gonna have to protect it. What are we gonna do? Younger latte sipping youngins. Don't you discriminate against people that sip lattes, alright? Don't be like that. We don't discriminate in this stream, especially not based on beverage choice. Alright, that's enough. I was just wondering if people were aware that we've just developed Australian PNG NATO. Do we have the same agreement with New Zealand? Hey, I wonder if Volta Turd knows. We should have something like that, I'm assuming, right? I'm gonna ask my research assistant. Alright, that's enough. Where is it? There you are. What can I help you with? So useful. So helpful. We were just watching a report by the ABC that Australia and Papua New Guinea have entered into a security treaty where an attack on one would be an attack on both, leading to joint security assurances. Does Australia have the same deal with New Zealand? Surely we would, right? Similar attack one is attack on both treaty with New Zealand, like the one recently signed with Papua New Guinea. The Puck Treaty. Short answer is yes, there is a treaty involving Australia and New Zealand, the ANZUS Treaty. But its obligations have shifted over time. Here's how they compare and how the ANZUS Treaty currently works. The Puck Treaty. Australia and Papua New Guinea signed a mutual defence treaty in 2025 called the Puck Treaty. Under the treaty, both countries recognise that an armed attack on either would be danger to the peace and security of both, and they agree to act to meet the common danger. There's also provisions for a close integration with military forces, joint exercises, shared defence infrastructure, and pathways for PNG citizens to serve in the Australian Defence Forces. ANZUS, Australia, New Zealand, United States. ANZUS is the Australian, New Zealand, and United States Security Treaty signed in 1951. One of its purposes is that if any party, Australia, New Zealand, or USA is attacked, the others recognise that this would endanger the peace and safety of the region and agree to consult and act together. Here's the caveat with ANZUS and New Zealand. Though ANZUS is still in force, the treaty's practical operation has changed, especially in relation to New Zealand. In 1984, New Zealand adopted a policy banning nuclear-armed or nuclear-powered vessels from its ports. That led to tensions with the US. As a result, in 1986, the United States effectively suspended its treaty obligations toward New Zealand. Oh my God. That suspension means that while formally ANZUS still includes 3 countries, in practice, the US does not consider itself bound to defend New Zealand if New Zealand is attacked. Oh my God. For Australia, the US is still strong. For New Zealand, the US treaty obligations have been suspended since the 80s. Formal treaties, same idea. An attack on one is dangerous to the other's duty to consult and act. I wonder if it's the same. If we got attacked, Trump would blackmail us. Could you imagine? He's got you in the Epstein files. That's fucking crazy. I knew it. I could never trust the New Zealanders. Remember when Scott Morrison ruined trade relations between Australia and China, and the ABC called it a failure of the Labor government? There will be Boganese militias defending Bali from China. Yeah, could you imagine? They'd be over there in their boats, in their tinnies, fishing boats to take out the Chinese. Lots of pack-a-day aunties in floral dresses with AKs and headscarves. Pack-a-day aunties. The visuals on that one. To be fair, it makes more sense for us to make this agreement with PNG. We're not going to push back against invasion from New Zealand. Proof WW2. Wait, sorry. We're not going to push back against invasion from New Zealand? What do you mean by that? Unless I'm reading that wrong. Because we are under invasion from New Zealand. They keep sending people over here. And when they break the law, we send them back. Isn't that right? Volta. How many millions did the government spend coming up with the name Puck Puck instead of just Anzac 2.0? Hey, bro, Puck Puck all the way. Shouldn't have taken them too long. Not too many resources spent on that endeavor, I'm hoping. All right, we're going deep with this one. Are we ready? We're gonna figure out what your boys, your favorites, I'm assuming, with everyone in this stream. We're going over to the IPA. Now, if 4AS was here, he'd have a goddamn heart attack. So I'm glad I'm not going to kill him today with watching this. But we're going to watch Australian's Future, Season 4, Episode 16 with Tony Abbott from the Institute of Public Affairs. For anyone who's watching this internationally, this is like our Heritage Foundation, I guess you would say. And yeah, we're going to watch what Tony Abbott thinks is basically the future for Australia, considering we're such a divided nation. Now, this has come out, I believe, in response to like the March for Australia Day stuff. So like talking about being under invasion from New Zealanders that come over here. I need to shower first, but I'm ready to go deep. Yeah, you guys have too many criminals already. Yeah, look, we're gonna watch this, like, you know, get yourself comfortable. When Mr. E goes to the research assistant, yeah, I know, Ryan. Hey, we need to find out what's inside its head. Oh my God, is that no way? This might actually be relevant for this audience. How to date Cuban women. Is this what happens when you pick the new atlas.org? That's hilarious. Hey, good old Cubans, hey. Gamer Jam upset. Don't be upset. I know everybody wants to watch some Tony Abbott. He's gonna shill ciggies. Is that anyone invading will come from the north? Even America would have to. It's also the most vulnerable part of the country for the resources there. Also, we could colonize New Zealand in a weekend. Excuse me. They're already the 8th state of Australia. If a politician called for the government to round up every billionaire and seize and redistribute all their assets, there would be unanimous bipartisan opposition. But when even worse is done to the powerless communities, half of the country cheers it on and the other half does nothing. I like the workers' rhetoric there. It's really good. But like, what are you saying that's in relation to? But when even worse is done to powerless communities, half the country cheers it on and the other half does nothing. In relation to which communities are we talking about here? Please, I would like to know more. All right, let's listen. Because I really want to know, after going to a March for Australia and like myself and talking to people there. Oh, just in general. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I don't think you'll get much backlash from this stream on that one. Yeah, colonize us so we can get some of that sweet, sweet tax revenue. They'll start being homophobic and start getting progressively steamy as the episode gets on. Oh, could you imagine if they start like stripping and then macking on Abbott and whoever this guy is? What's his name? And IPA distinguished fellow. No, wrong one. Sorry. IPA's deputy executive director, Daniel. Oh, Daniel, stop it. All right, let's listen to what they have to say. I might speed it up a little bit because it's going to be dry as fuck. But like, I do want to know what he actually has to say about, like, you know, how do we fix Australia's migration problems, that kind of thing. You know, what's a conservative going to say in the wake of the, you know, the general unrest? and apathy that is plaguing the Australian political scene at the moment. Let's see what Abbott has to say.
What ASIO has apparently told the government is that the Iranians, through the Revolutionary Guard Corps, have been sponsoring domestic terrorism in this country. Now let that sink in for a minute. The fact that they're prepared to do this to us, what does this say about the ferocity and the fanaticism of their campaign against the little Satan, which is what they call Israel, and the great Satan, which is what they call the United States, and really against Western civilization more generally?
2025 is a year of change. Cultural and political disruption is transforming our nation and the global order. The rebellion against the establishment has accelerated. Australia and the Western Alliance is now at a crossroads. Either the mainstream will continue its ascendancy or the elites will prevail.
What?
Hello.
What the fuck does that even mean? Did he just say the mainstream will do something and all the elites will prevail? What does that even mean? What is he talking about? Oh, Voltaton, nah, we would require statehood. You'd be a territory. If ASIO says it, then it must... Yeah, I know, right? Hey, ASIO made the report. Obviously, Iran's a big problem. Don't you get it? And the timing of it was not sus. Oh my God, soon we'll have a shite government. This guy already sounds so vacuous, and we have barely started the video. Hey, don't judge too early, okay? I'm sure... Look at that face. There's a lot of substance there. There's substance. I think he's got a neoliberal... I think that might be Hayek or something like that in the back. Like Trump, IPA review, Trump. And he's got Orwell. You know he's down with being anti-establishment. He's got fucking Orwell on the bookshelf. This guy's across it, bro.
Tony, and g'day to all of our viewers and listeners. Great to be back. Today we'll be discussing the demonstrations held over the weekend, immigration policy, net zero, Australia's flag, and the expulsion of the Iranian ambassador. Tony, great to be back with you.
As always, Dan, lovely to be with you and our listeners.
All right, great. So let's start with the demonstrations that took place over the weekend across the country, across all capital cities and major regional centres. There was a lot of people turning out, mostly in relation to protesting the government's mass migration policy, but also many other issues have bubbled to the surface. So, Tony, just keen to get your perspective and assessment of those demonstrations.
I'm keen. I want to know what he has to say about the March for Australia movement and, like, you know, how we're all under threat from mass immigration. Not normal immigration. Hey, that's okay. Just mass immigration. You can hold your judgment. I choose to remain the old man screaming at a cloud. I reserve the right to judge away.
Demonstrations and what they might be saying about the current political climate in our country.
Well, thanks, Dan. And it's pretty obvious that a lot of ordinary Australians, everyday people, not extremists, not neo-Nazis, are feeling fed up with government that doesn't appear to be taking them seriously. And whether it's mass migration or net zero, people think that there are obvious things that need to change. The energy inside.
When they start talking about net zero, I haven't been paying attention to this conversation at all. So people can actually have to start filling me in on why this is such a drama all of a sudden. Because I've heard, you know, Susan Ley and the Weak Coalition jumping on issues of the culture wars to try and get some traction behind them. But, like, what's going on with net zero and why is this such a big issue at the moment? I'll let people fill me in as they as we get to that topic, please.
The out of control migration program, but government is either ignoring them or it's ineffective in responding to them. So that's what we really saw on the weekend. I think a cry of dismay and even anger from 99.9% decent people who think that their country is changing for the worse and they're not being asked about it. It's happening without their say-so, often by stealth, and they're understandably unhappy. So I think what's really needed is for
By stealth, what does that mean? Like they come in the middle of the night, like these people sneak into the country in the middle of the night, not through the Department of Immigration, and they just like rock up in your suburbs. You're like, wait, how did you get in here? Why are you in my backyard? Where'd you get that tent from? Like it's by stealth that people are invading the country. I love it, man. It's fucking hilarious. Wait, what about net zero? I don't know, but there's a big discussion in our country at the moment, it would seem, that's being propelled by our conservative politicians because they have nothing else going for them to like attack the idea of net zero policies. And like I'm just not keeping up to date with that debate, but it seems to be an important talking point for the Conservatives because they need something to bash the government with because they don't have anything else. And so yeah, net zero seems to be a talking point. Say the same about the Palestine march, Tony. Hey, stealth. Hey, all those migrants coming to Australia by stealth. Oh, it's just anti-climate change. Yeah, I think it is. But like, I don't know the specifics of it. That's why I need to learn a bit more, I guess.
Unhappy. So I think what's really needed is for government, instead of denouncing people as right-wing nut jobs and bigots and even neo-Nazis, instead of denouncing people, the important thing is to
listen to it.
Look seriously at their concerns. Where people are right, respond positively. Where people are misguided, have an honest conversation with them and explain exactly why it is that the government is doing what it wants as opposed to what quite a lot of people might want. So I think really what we've witnessed on both of these issues is a failure, particularly by this government, but to some extent by all our major parties, a failure to take seriously people who think that our country is changing before their eyes for the worse.
I thought it was interesting because very rarely do mainstream Australians take to the streets, and we've seen this happen in a major way twice.
Do you hear the rhetoric that they use? So like when people get out in support of issues that I guess these guys are down with, they're mainstream Australians. This is exactly the type of conservative rhetoric that comes out of think tanks that you have in like the US. They started this stuff in the think tanks, the conservative think tanks in the US about the silent majority out there. There's like silent individuals that they don't want to voice their opinion because they're scared of being chastised by evil liberals and wokies. But the silent majority exists. And so it's the mainstream. So that's what the mainstream is. I thought he was talking about the media. So if you are one of those people that are protesting out there against immigration and why you don't like immigration, that's fine. You are the mainstream. Remember that. Don't be told otherwise.
In the last few years, the first was over COVID, certainly in Melbourne, where there were hundreds of thousands of people that took to the streets in Melbourne. And secondly, these demonstrations and protests. So people twice in the last few years. The first was over COVID, certainly in Melbourne, where there were hundreds of thousands of people that took to the streets in Melbourne. And secondly, these demonstrations and protests. So it is quite unusual. Usually the protests are the reserve of the activist brigade, but the fact that normal people are taking to the streets suggests that something is very wrong.
You're absolutely right there.
These are the normies. The normies are out on the street. This rhetoric is so good. I wish we had done this before. Oh my God. Climate change denial, saying it costs more money for greener energy. This is the MF's worldview. You know what? Him eating an onion like an apple is more of a threat than people being against fossil fuels and the G word. Big fossil fuel won't make as much money with the increased spending on renewable energy infrastructure. Trying to increase the public's view on increased fossil fuel extraction is the goal. Ha! Abbott still has his nodding tick. Yeah. Yes, he does. Squeeb's in the house. How you going? Not in agreement and nods in not understanding. Nods in disagreement. What's funny is they are talking like people in the marches are supporting the Liberal Party instead of realizing the bulk of these people hate both the majors. No, these guys are the representatives of the mainstream. They are with the normal people out there. That's who they support.
And the interesting thing about these protests, and the papers report that there was some 50,000. The papers and police report that there was some 50,000 on the streets around the country. The interesting thing about them is there was no prominent figure who summoned them to action. They were really just spontaneous eruptions, grassroots expressions of unhappiness. The only significant person who addressed these rallies was Pauline Hanson in Canberra. So they were very much expressions of grassroots dismay. And the fact that even without significant leadership, you had 50,000 people on the streets makes me think that this unhappiness really is quite widespread. And certainly if you look at the opinion polls...
Fucking thank God, right? Like, honestly, this is a high-ranking politician, ex-PM, and he's just like, you know, and if you think about people going outside and being angry, it makes me think that people are not happy. Wow, what an insightful political analysis that was. People going outside, you know, displaying that they're upset. It makes me think people just aren't happy. What a fucking analysis that was. Yeah, more like 15,000 according to your sources. Hey. Well, they did say there was about 15,000 people in Sydney. So that was what they were saying officially at the rally. Right-wing parties in all countries have financial ties to the fossil fuel industry. We see the same anti-climate change propaganda from our politicians as we do from Americans. Indoctrinating, they're co-opting the language used about the pro-Palestinian protests on the Harbour Bridge. No imagination, these hicks. Keating was right about him.
Well over 50% of people will tell pollsters that current rates of immigration are either too high or far too high. And this is why I think government shouldn't just talk about what it might do to bring immigration down, but actually has to change policy and change policy fast.
And one of the things at the demonstrations we saw were a lot of displays of the Australian flag. Unusual these days to see only the Australian flag flown, but we saw a lot of the flag. And of course, we've got National Flag Day on Wednesday this week, so a timely demonstration of our national flag.
Well, you're right, Dan, and it is a little unusual these days to see a demonstration that flies the Australian flag and only the Australian flag, although I do note that there was the blue ensign and the red ensign, both of which are official flags, one of which is our national flag, as opposed to the Aboriginal flag and the Palestinian flag, which seem to be flying far more frequently on our streets these days. So look, good to see decent Australians who are proud of our country, who want it to evolve, not to change radically and drastically, and who are proud to walk under, stand behind our one Australian flag, the beautiful flag of stars and crosses, which is the flag of all of us.
And of course, the flag itself was a product of the community. I mean, this is something the elites have never understood, which was there was a contest in the late 1800s to actually have, well, what is our national flag going to be? And there was something like 1% of the entire population submitted a design to the committee for what the flag is going to be. And many of those submissions included something with the Union Jack, something with the Southern Cross in it. So those such as Paul Keating, who keep going on about how we have to change our flag, they are in the tiny minority of elites who have not been a part of the construction of the flag and design of it, and who don't understand that this was a product of the community, which is why we love our flag.
Completely correct.
All right. So when someone does things 100 years ago, you can't change it. There's your line of argumentation here. Let's just fact check that. I want to know if we can trust this talk, this mouthpiece here. Just quickly. Can you explain how the Australian flag in its current design was decided upon? When Australia became a federation in the 1st of January 1901, forming the Commonwealth of Australia, it needed a flag to represent the new nation. So later that year, the new federal government announced a public design competition. More than 32,000 entries were submitted from school children to professional artists. The community has spoken. The panel of judges reviewed the entries anonymously and eventually selected 5 almost identical designs as joint winners, all featuring the Union Jack. Yeah, I'm sure the panel of judges had zero bias in there, right? 32,000 entries, 5 almost identical designs chosen as joint winners. Union Jack, Southern Cross, large star beneath the Union Jack representing the Federation of States. Interesting. Early version 1901, 1903. 1953, the Flags Act was passed by the Australian Parliament under Prime Minister Robert Menzies. Act legally declared the blue ensign to be the Australian national flag. So it was designed 100 years ago by the community. And so, like, we cannot consider it ever again. It was done by the community for the Australian people, and the Australians haven't changed since 1901. Remember that. Australia hasn't changed a lot since then. Not a lot at all.
Who don't understand that this was a product of the community, which is why we love our flag.
Completely correct. And there was actually quite a history to our flag. In fact, the forerunner to our flag was the Anti-Transportation League flag in the 1850s. So almost from the beginning, Australians, those who were to become Australians, have been rallying under something very much like our current.
Does anyone know what the Anti-Transportation League flag is? Is that like anti-convict stuff? Opposition to penal transportation of convicts. Yes. Oh my God. And that was what it looked like. Union Jack, Southern Cross, done. Interesting. So it represented ending the convict arrangement. Stop getting in the slave labor, eh? We'll just stick to our wage labor. Thank you very much. That's enough for me. What about the rainbow flag? Rookie missed that jab. Yeah, I know, right? And yet I see the Israeli flag flying in our parliament all the time. Care to speak about that, Abbott, my guy? Oof, yeah, the elites. You're right, Dan. Did Paul Keating grow up in Bankstown? Is he really elite? Yeah, he did. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a bold-faced lie. What community? The British settler community? Damn those elites with their kebabs. We have come so far. We've added a star for the states is all. Yeah, pretty much from the anti-transportation, which is like, that's a fair movement, right? Hey, let's stop the convict transportation to Australia. We don't need more convicts coming here. To the Australian flag, which is basically picked by 5 judges who were just like, yeah, let's just stick with this one and we'll just put the an extra star at the bottom. Interesting. Oh, 4AS in the house. Bro, I told everyone that you would have a heart attack if you found out what we were doing. And just for you, we are viewing content from, are you ready? Dun, 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 the Institute of Public Affairs. That's right, the IPA, our oppositional think tank. Yeah, no, like our main political adversary as a think tank, the Revolutionary Think Tank podcast. This is our opposition. One day we will have more subs than the IPA, bro. And we'll have Tony Abbott on for an interview one day. And we'll grill him over what the Australian community really means 100 years ago. It was just a conglomeration of British people.
Flag, something which combines both the crosses of St. Patrick, St. George and St. Andrew, and the stars of the Southern Cross.
You mentioned immigration as one of the flashpoints, and clearly The size of the immigration program has gotten out of control. Just for context, in the first term of this Labor government, 1.3 million net overseas arrivals, which is by far the largest on record. And every single year of the 3 years of the Labor government's first term, they were record intakes. Nothing is near other than 2007 and 2008 under Kevin Rudd. But since then, there's been nothing near that. So the size has gotten out of control, and clearly we've also got a composition issue with many of the most recent arrivals not sharing, mainstream Australian values. So interested in your perspective on the current migration issue.
What an overarching statement that was, eh? And like, these people that come here, they don't share Australian values. And like, what's the context behind that? You mean they're darkies, eh? And they speak them foreign languages, eh? I don't like that. They have some quality backdrops though, and budget for editing. Yeah, they do. I know. That's what we were looking at before. Why can't I see all of your comments? I wonder if I'm getting screened on this side. They have some quality backdrops though. Recent arrivals. Great way to say legacy settlers are okay. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Eh? Tony Abbott looks like he came from the pits of hell. Look at those eyes. He looks like a demon. I had to fact check this on GPT. It's estimated to be around 900 a day. What are you reading? What are you fact checking? What? How many people are coming in a day or something like that? Yeah, I'm on Restream. Yeah. No, I was just like, I can see some stuff that you said on YouTube that I couldn't see on my Restream for some reason. I thought that was odd. But I think it's just that other people's comments aren't getting through. So, net migration is 900. Net immigration, sorry. Because he said it was 1.3 million. After you balance it out. I wonder if that's true.
It's interesting that while Australia has very successfully, starting with the Abbott government, got illegal migration under control. Indeed, we haven't had any illegal migration of substance since 2014. We haven't got legal migration under control. In fact, in recent times, legal migration has skyrocketed, mostly because it's being driven by educational institutions which are effectively selling residency as opposed to schooling or studying, and businesses
Here comes the Chinese
would
Just
prefer
say it, bro. Say
not to train up locals or pay locals what locals will work for, and therefore import workers to do entry-level jobs. This idea that Australia has a skills-based immigration program is misleading, to put it at its best. Effectively, we're importing people to do entry-level jobs that Australians won't do. That's not the immigrants' fault. It's our fault for not running a better system. And as well as that, again, I think 99.9% of our migrants come here wanting to join us, not to change us, but all too often they come here and instead of being told that they're now part of the best country on earth, they're told that they're part of a country which should be ashamed of itself because of its past racism and present discrimination, a country that had almost illegitimate origins because of the dispossession of the Aboriginal people and so on. So we really need to get our act together in terms of having a genuine skills-based migration program that's much smaller than the current one, and insisting to new migrants that they're not just living in Hotel Australia, they're actually now part of Team Australia and need to subscribe to the sort of values that until recently we took great pride in.
What sort of number do you think the program should be? So I think it's about it was 500,000 per year, roughly, under the last term of government. Now they've said they're going to bring it down, but I'll believe it when I see it. Previously, it's been 200 to 300,000. I think it needs to be below 100, probably something like 90 to 100,000.
See, I remember it was funny when I was walking around interviewing people at March for Australia. There were very few people that actually had an understanding of how much the mass migration problem was. There was like one or two people, I think, that were just like, no, we're here because we don't like mass migration. We don't care about like migration. We're happy for migrants to come here. We just don't want mass migration. But like when asked for a number, they really didn't even know what I was talking about. And they were like, oh, and like evaded the question, I guess you would say. I didn't really know how to respond. But he's been quite clear that he wants under 100,000 people coming into the country at any one time. And Abbott, I guess, has the viewpoint that we should be targeting only bringing in people that are skilled workers. Interesting. How's the dog whistles? The thing with the net immigration rate is it doesn't take into account what the population growth is or the internal population replacement rate is. Hey, don't talk about replacement levels, please. Hey, that puts all of the advanced industrial nations, that puts their back up straight away. They get upset about that. Even with external immigration, internal still puts pressure on communities. What values are those, Tony? Maybe treat migration like value capture, then they will fall in love with immigration.
Maybe even a temporary pause for the most part till infrastructure catches up. So do you have a particular number in mind of what you think it might be?
Dan, back in about 2017, I think it was, when I was still in the Parliament, I gave what I thought was quite a big speech on this very topic. And back then, I said that immigration should be scaled back to the average of the Howard years, which was just over 100,000. Now, at the time, I was taken to task by the then government, particularly by Scott Morrison, who was then the Treasurer, who said that to scale back immigration from about 200,000, which is where it was then, to about 100,000 would cost something like $5 billion a year. And this is because the Treasury boffins think that every migrant is adding to economic growth, and therefore if you reduce migration, you reduce economic growth, you reduce the tax take, and therefore you've got to find savings in order to reduce migration. Now, it's true that most migrants do add to overall economic growth, but they don't necessarily add to growth per capita, growth per person, because a lot of our recent migrants in particular are not as productive as the general Australian population. And this is why, in recent times, even though economic growth has remained, in many cases, in many instances, quite strong, people don't feel more wealthy because growth per person has been declining over the last couple of years. And
all they talk about, and this was again the sentiment that I was getting from people that I was interviewing at March for Australia, is people are talking about economic issues. They're just like, they feel like they've been screwed over by the system. The system's not working for them. They've gone through problems with, cost of living crisis, not being able to buy a house, not being able to get a job, worrying about the future that their children are going to be living in, where they don't have the same opportunities as their parents did or their grandparents did. All of this stuff is economic issues. It was even talking about, let's just suspend migration until we get infrastructure under control. Well, hello. You're going to have to start spending money on infrastructure then. You're going to have to be spending big money, not looking to the private sector, to help produce housing and just giving subsidies for developers to build housing, because all they do is they just build the housing that they want, not what is actually real demand. They just build what's profitable. They don't address real demand in the economy and like where the use is, where the need is. And like all of this is economic issues, and they're just clouding it with like, hey, bring too many people in here, and it's going to be a problem for you. And they don't have your values either. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. I think they just admitted that infrastructure hasn't caught up, despite them being in power for the last decade. Hey, enough with you and your facts. Hey, don't let that get in the way of a discussion about whether there's too many goddamn migrants in this country. I see this is at the hospital all the time. I see this at the hospital all the time, says an engine nurse. They see the ethnic kids who were born here working in the hospital, and they think we have imported them all. Oh, wow. The racism is real. They just say whites only. We know what you want, Tony. He's saying that there's good and bad migrants, and migrants cost the community more than they add. Growth per person isn't what Abbott said. They said utilities weren't scaling with the size of the population. That's different to me, as offshoring of roles and building more tech means the jobs go round are reducing even without migrants. That's interesting. But yeah, like the argumentation is interesting there as well. He's like, yeah, okay, migrants are good for the economy because like if more people are here, there's more people spending and consuming, I guess. But like that doesn't mean that they're workers and they're actually going out there and getting a job and creating value. This is all very Marxist stuff, can I just add? Thinking about like who's really producing the value. They're just consumers that help money circulate. Or they're actually producing value for the economy. I think there are important distinctions, but I think it's kind of overwhelming that it's too much of overreach to say that many of the migrants that come in, or all of the migrants that are coming in, aren't adding value. I think that's a bit of a stretch. What things are more expensive? Is that because inflation is just capitalist business increasing prices because they can? Yeah, it's a good point. I always say that a lot. Like inflation really is a choice at the end of the day. Businesses can choose not to put up their prices. Just because everyone else is putting up their prices doesn't mean you have to be the same douchebag and put your fucking prices up. Or because wages haven't increased in line with these price changes, or both. Hey, enough with your general observations that actually explain things. How do they get money to spend if they aren't working? They come here, eh? And they live off the social safety net. They're all on the dole, and they go to Centrelink, and they collect their fat paychecks from the government because they've all got citizenship now, and they bleed this country dry. Don't ask that question, please. How dare you? Yeah, they're all dole bludgers. With those sweet, sweet Centrelink checks. That's how they do it.
Quite a few years before then was stagnant. So high immigration is not only putting pressure on our infrastructure, it's not only putting downward pressure on wages and upward pressure on housing costs, it's also masking the fact that in recent times, governments have been frightened of economic reform. And so as a substitute for genuine economic reform, they're pumping up the migration figures to give the illusion of growth, which is not translating through to a wealthier and more prosperous society.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just shows that as Treasurer, Scott Morrison was a sock puppet for the bureaucrats in Treasury, which happens all too often to ministers, which is the bureaucrats that are there for 20, 30, 40 years. They've got their ideas and they go, oh, beauty, here comes a minister that doesn't have any ideas of his own. We'll give him this. And then they go trumpet those lines. But the other point, which you're sort of alluding to, it's not just the per capita, it's the actual lived experience of people on the ground. So all of those things you mentioned, the congestion on the roads, getting into a childcare centre, having access to local amenities, green spaces, affordable housing, getting a GP appointment. I'm not blaming the migrants for this. It's blaming the government's unplanned program. Clearly, people's lived experience is getting much worse and much more difficult. And if you can't see that, then you're fundamentally disconnected from the reality of people's lives.
And perhaps the most dispiriting thing that's happened over the last few days is not the eruption of unhappiness on our streets, which I think was pretty much spontaneous and in 99.9% of cases, absolutely genuine.
Like, how many times has he said that same line? They're really scared of being associated with neo-Nazis, aren't they? Eh? Wouldn't want that stain on your record, would you? IPA, eh? Eh? Dan coming in with the irony of bureaucrats and elites. Yeah, it's pretty delicious, isn't it? Eh? Come on, Dan. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's those evil elites and bureaucrats. They're the real problem. You wouldn't know any of them, would you, Dan? Eh?
It's been the attempt by the government, in particular, and the political class more generally, to shut this debate down. We really do have to be prepared to discuss the difficult issues, and by repressing discussion, by attacking people who want to raise topics as being divisive, bigoted, even racist, we aren't changing their minds or persuading them that they need to be more high-minded. We're actually just causing these grievances and resentments to fester. So, as I said, what an intelligent polity does in a situation of widespread dissatisfaction is not demonise the dissatisfied, but it explains patiently why people really need to think again. We're not getting that. I mean, if the protesters were wrong, explain exactly why they're wrong. Instead, they've been dismissed and demonised, and that's not going to help. It's certainly not going to help in the long run.
Well, the other topic that's considered controversial by the political class is that of net zero. And we're told, well, we have to do net zero because of climate change. And if you don't support net zero, therefore you're a climate denier and so forth. And it devolves into that ad hominem name calling. But clearly net zero is a policy that is failing our country and continues to do so. The government is...
Can somebody, like I asked for this before, can someone give me context? Why is it failing our country? What's happened to Australia with net zero targets? Has something happened? Have we lost somewhere? Has Tasmania fallen off the map or something? Has there been some type of flood or eruption? Has one of the dormant volcanoes erupted and destroyed half of the country? Like, have I missed something? There's a massive black hole between what Abbott thinks, the right wing thinks, and what they actually think. Dan should have Noam Chomsky's manufacturing consent right behind him on the shelf, just as a gentle reminder. Explain why they're wrong. We have, you won't listen. Like, what is exactly, what's happening with what has it done to the country?
And so forth, and it devolves into that ad hominem name calling. But clearly net zero is a policy that is failing our country and continues to do so.
It's failing our country. Maybe they'll explain it, but I just want to get some context. There's a lot of conversation from conservative politicians and the coalition party at the federal level in Australian politics about net zero targets. And the rhetoric seems to be that net zero is failing Australia. Can you explain the rhetoric there? Why is it failing Australia? Is it because we have like all these resources and we need to capitalize on that? Is that what it's about? Like net zero by 2050 means that Australia's or a company or another entity, greenhouse gas emissions will be balanced by the removal of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Along the way, there's interim targets, for example, reduction by 2030, and policies, technologies needed to get there, renewables, transmission infrastructure, storage, possibly changing consumption habits. What the critics, especially the conservative coalition side, are saying. Here's what the main points of the criticism. Cost and economic burden. Okay, right. Critics argue that costs of transitioning energy infrastructure, installing renewable power, upgrading transmission, storage, dealing with intermittency, etc., are too high. Figures cite as projections that net zero transition will cost $7 to $9 trillion over many decades. Okay, right. Not trillion. That's even worse. Specific costs are pointed to rising electricity and gas bills, infrastructure costs. See, they're coming after you. They're going to hit you in the pocket with their net zero craziness. Your power bills are going to go up. It's not because we've privatized the electricity grid and distribution. No. It's not because of years of neoliberalism. No. It's because of those goddamn renewables. They're the worst. Reliability, energy security risks. Some argue that closing down baseload power, especially coal-fired power, or even reducing dependence on gas before having sufficient replacement. It's just the same old shit. It's the same old arguments. It's not new. I thought there was something new that had happened recently. It's just the same old stuff. The sun doesn't always shine, man. Some in regional and rural areas feel that they're hardest hit by the costs of energy, or getting fewer of the perceived benefits. Critics say that a lot of net zero talk relies on offsets or removals rather than actual deep emissions reductions, i.e. reducing emissions as much as possible, then offsetting what can't be avoided. Some see it as an easy way out, or greenwashing. Yeah, fair enough. Offsetting sucks. It's just like putting a price on your carbon emissions. Concern that Australia will be disadvantaged globally if its energy is more expensive or industries are less competitive. Hey, really simple. Take energy off the market. Nationalize it. Nationalize the entire grid. Do it. And then just put it down. And then get other people. You can tax people harder on it if you want. Just nationalize it. Take it off the market. That'll help reduce the cost of living crisis massively. Some of the rhetoric is about electoral risk, that net zero policies could alienate certain voter bases. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Why the rhetoric? Why is it failing? When people say net zero is failing, what they mean is it's not on track to meet its interim targets. Some reports show that policies are working at cross purposes. Costs are higher than expected. There are concerns about reliability. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So let's stoke the culture wars, basically. This will get people pissed off again. Get back to the culture wars. Dilemmas, because the net zero targets are increasing power prices, causing the cost of living and housing to skyrocket. We have to hit net zero at whatever cost to the taxpayer it takes, because we believe our ideology is right and above reproach. Sell our gas, sell our grid, same old stuff. Power bills just keep on going up. We're talking about carbon accounting. We're talking, yeah. You're our expert resident when it comes to carbon accounting for us. Hey?
The government is doubling down on its policy of probably an 83% cut to emissions in the medium term and sticking to the net zero buy.
Do you reckon any of these guys are paid by lobbyists in the energy sectors? Do you reckon any of them would have any of that type of dirty money on their hands when they come up with these independent think tank observations? 100%. Are you saying that to my question about them taking money off corporate interest groups? They know the talking point. Yeah. It'd be pretty awesome if Tony Abbott ripped his shirt and showed a tattoo of BP, LOL. Yeah, them getting paid. Yeah, you got to question it. I get it. There are things that can be done better. It's not always efficient. Blah blah blah. It's going to cost, etc. Hey, simple. Take things off the market for people. Save their cost burden. I'm all for that. But do you reckon these guys legitimately care about average Australians and their energy prices? Or are they just backed by some big industry money somewhere? That's what I've been saying, bro. My problem with carbon accounting is the individual company basis of it. Yeah. And like the way that it can be warped, like any form of accounting, I'd say. Oh man, how did I miss all of that? How long ago did you say this? What things are more expensive? It's just because, oh no, we read that before. Professor Wolf points out inflation scam in such a marvelous way. Okay, no, I did read that before. I just copped a 2,000 a quarter power bill with solar and a battery. I'm done with renewables. Give me coal and gas. Okay, and so that is because you've got solar and a battery, like at your house, you mean? That's fucking mental. Do you have like 50 fridges or something like that? $2,000 a quarter. That's crazy, man. I do feel for you. I'd be absolutely screwed if I got a 2,000 a quarter power bill. Does Dan only have one eyebrow? It must be the lighting. It looks like someone waxed it off recently. Yeah. That's hilarious. They're gonna burn it to use it for energy because they can't cover their energy costs at the IPA. That makes me think that you're getting scammed from the energy providers. 100% dilemmas. Yeah, that's crazy. 2,000 is nuts. I'd be screwed.
2050. What's your assessment of where the debate currently goes, Tony?
Dan, I don't want to get too hung up over net zero itself, because a commitment to do something in 25 years' time is, as it were, theoretical and speculative, almost theological, as opposed to immediately meaningful. What I think needs to be done is a rapid and drastic reconsideration of our energy policy, which quite frankly is an act of monumental economic self-harm. So that's what I want to see, a much more sensible energy policy rather than getting too hung up over the concept of reducing emissions at some point down the track when we can do so without costing jobs and driving industries offshore. So that's what I want to see. Now, I not only is it a fact that any emissions reduction that we achieve in this country is going to be swallowed up by the emissions increases in other countries. China, Russia, India have never been committed to net zero by 2050. The United States wasn't committed under the first Trump administration. It's certainly not committed under the second Trump administration. The only parts of the world that are still ideal.
Do you guys buy that argument? I hear that one come out a lot, where people are like, oh yeah, well, like we shouldn't have to reduce our emissions because, like, you know, China doesn't, or like India doesn't, and like they have way more emissions than we do. So like we shouldn't do anything to make ourselves more sustainable, let's say. We shouldn't do anything because, like, hey, it'll get eaten up by other bigger fish anyway, so who cares? Like, that's pretty much the argument. Like, let's not look after our environment, or like spend any money looking after the environment because somebody else is just going to destroy it anyway. Like, so let's just, you know, burn it all, man. Like, I think that's pretty much the argument, unless I've got that line of thinking wrong, I think. It's SA power prices. I own my house, 19 panels and a battery, and you still pay. I don't get it. So like you generate all of that power, store it in your own battery, and you still pay $2,000 a quarter. That's mental. SA is pure renewable, and we get the rest we need from other states with a little tax thrown on for good measure. If you support net zero, these prices are coming to a bill near you soon. I've got panels. I used to break even. Then the government changed the feed-in tariffs, and it's been going up ever since. So like, what's the problem there? Like, at one point, you used to break even and now you're paying $2,000 a quarter. Like, what's the difference there? Do you have a battery on site, or you're feeding back into the grid? My bill is about 2,000 as well. But like, do you have 19 solar panels and a battery? This is mental. Nah, knowing Tony, he'd rip and open his shirt and it'd be a big tattoo of Gina Reinhardt with mummy above it. Sugar mummy. Oh, yeah. China's been making huge steps in building cost-efficient renewable energy. Infrastructure takes time. It does. And that's why you'd have to, like, plan for it, invest it. Think of that. Capitalism, planning for something. That's why everyone's so upset about it. No, we don't plan. Just leave it up to the market. I'm getting a battery installed next week with cells. Week after. No way. Look at you. Stepping into the fucking future. Squeeb 89. Battery as well. Damn. Here we are all living in the 20th century. Squeeb 89 over there. Fully self-sufficient. So going to be living off grid. Harvest your own water. I make my own vegetables too. Look into renewable energy infrastructure costs. The data is out there. Yeah, okay. Abbott is pushing coal and other fossil fuels. I wonder how much money he took from Gina. Yeah, okay. What a stupid argument. We shouldn't do renewables because it's abstract, and in the future, my brain and the brain of people who believe don't understand we can do things to make our future better. So let's not do that. Does Abbott not buy groceries for more than a day in the future? Yeah, so off the grid. I drink my own piss. I knew it. I fucking knew it. That's hilarious. Yeah, my own battery. When it's full, it feeds back into the grid, and you still pay to. That's mental. That's absolutely mental. But it sounds like there was a policy change that's fucked you over. Or I'm misunderstand. I'm misreading what you said there, Dilemmas. That's wild. My last quarter was like 900 or so. And I thought that was steep. And I don't have panels. Yeah, fuck. I know, I don't have panels. And like mine was about 1,000 last quarter. I'm like, damn. I'd be shattered if I had a battery and I was still paying anywhere near that.
Logically committed to net zero by 2050, come what may, are Britain, parts of Western Europe and Australia. And this is why we are effectively deindustrialising and weakening ourselves by exporting our heavy industry to places like China and India, and more recently the United States, which are not so ideologically constrained. So that's, I think, the first point that needs to be made. The second point that needs to be made is that in the attempt to rapidly decarbonise our electricity system, we are totally vandalising our countryside. People in rural Australia are understandably angry at the way their prime agricultural land, their pristine national parks are now being carpeted with solar panels and forested with wind turbines and transmission towers. Some of these wind turbines are almost 300 metres tall. Many of these transmission towers are 100 metres tall. Now you imagine your landscape covered in these monstrosities marching off to the horizon. Is it any wonder that people are angry? And is it any wonder that the Prime Minister and the Premier got really quite severely heckled at the National Rural Summit last week?
With net zero, I think that when it comes to the Liberal Party, I just think they've got to dump the policy, because having a sort of a yes but policy almost never works. If you're saying, yes, we'll do net zero, but we're doing it this way, that's what the problem was with the nuclear policy, because the nuclear policy was, we're doing nuclear because we want to do net zero, rather than we're doing nuclear because we want to get prices down, or because it makes sense for other reasons. So I take your point that it's 25 years off, and pretty much all of the parliamentarians that are there now, many of them won't be alive in 2050. But I just think that there needs to be a clean and decisive break from the Liberal Party.
I hear what you're saying, and there's no doubt it would certainly be a decisive break. I guess the important thing in politics is not to fret too much about things that are a long way down the track. It's to change the things that need to change now. I mean, there are many things that might happen in a decade, in 2 decades, in 3 decades, and we can spend a lot of time speculating about that, worrying ourselves sick about that, or we can say, what is our problem today, and fix that. And frankly, sensible centre-right politics, I think, is essentially problem-solving rather than ideological. And what is our problem today? Our problem is power bills going through the...
That was my line. Hey? This guy's got to be a Marxist. He's got to be a Marxist. Hey? We don't go by ideology. We go by material analysis. Hey? We are not ideological on this one at all. And we definitely don't take any money from any lobby groups that support fossil fuels. Definitely. Four kids, 3 adults, electric heater, aircon, electricity grill. Shifting houses to a gas-free environment means higher electric bills. Hence my skeptical nature towards net zero. Sure, try to help the environment, but don't kneecap our economy in order to achieve so made up a number. Solar panels do reduce costs. Home pays for its install, not the rest of its user base. And they draw less from the grid. With some panels, the material used were up to the mid 90% recyclables. The technology is progressing, and the more investment into these industries will do nothing but produce more efficient tech. Just more houses, more demand for power per house in modern society is pushing up prices. Short-term policies are good for pollies, I'm hearing. Yeah, I know. That's what he basically said. It's just like, look, let's not plan for the future. In politics, in liberal democratic politics, just look at the short-term stuff that you can control. Don't worry about the future. Don't stress on things beyond your term. If a Band-Aid fixes it, don't change the process. Yeah, what a fucking admission that was, hey? I also don't have a gas connection, and I forget a lot of people do. Sounds like Abbott is ignoring the fact that China has installed more solar in the last year than every other country ever. Not ideological is the code word for neoliberal capitalist ideology because it's common sense. Yes, it's not ideological because everyone agrees. It just makes sense. Greed is good.
Roof, industries migrating offshore, and our countryside being desecrated because some people are destroying the environment in order supposedly to save the planet. So let's stop these things from happening. If we keep coal-fired power stations open, if we get more gas out of the ground, if we end the subsidies for renewables, and if we end the nuclear ban, these are the sensible things we can do now that will solve today's problems. And look, there's no doubt if we really do have to get to net zero, and at some point in time, I suppose it would be a good thing to do, but if we really do have to get to net zero, the only way to do it and keep the lights on is via nuclear power.
I want to turn to another topic, which is an interesting one, which is to do with the Iranian embassy, and the ambassador was expelled from our country, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the first time that's happened since World War II, where an ambassador has been kicked out from our country. Now, this was because of the apparent involvement in anti-Semitic attacks on our soil. So this is a fairly unique set of events that have taken place. So interested in your thoughts on this specific instance, but also what it might reveal about the broader challenges that we face.
Is he going to say the line? Do you reckon he's going to be like, yeah, Israel, anti-Semitic. I wonder if he's going to say the line. I wonder if he has to. I'm assuming that would be the IPA's position on all of this, right? It's like, must support Israel. Anyone who does not support Israel is anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism. Let's ignore what will affect humans in the future. We're all going to die anyway. Paraphrasing Abbott. Oh yeah, think of the countryside. Good idea. We should stop mining, logging, deforestation, farming, and let Abbott live. That's a really good point. That's all I could think about. Was just like, well, what about all of the deforestation that happens? Like we've wiped out so much of like the bush land, like honest, like real bushland in this country. And like they're not worried about that tainting the landscape and the rural character and nature, everything. That's it. He hit nuclear, and he hit a nuclear hothead. So it's the weapons companies that paid Abbott. There it is. Oh yeah, fuck gas. Glad not to have it anymore. 4AS, Tony Abbott. From my perspective, I'm the real environmentalist. Yeah, I know, right? That's so good. I care about the environment. Hey, these so-called people that care about the environment. Do those nuclear reactors that all the experts agree don't work, and we lost an election on cause we weren't consistent on it? This doesn't seem ideological at all. Supporting Israel? Let's see if he says it or not. Let's do the thing. Do the conservative line.
Yeah, this is really quite extraordinary, Dan. What ASIO has apparently told the government is that the Iranians, through the Revolutionary Guard Corps, have been sponsoring domestic terrorism in this country. Now, let that sink in for a minute. A foreign government, through one of its principal agencies, has been sponsoring acts in this country designed to harm and to terrorise Australian citizens.
Would they get really upset if they found out somehow that the CIA and the Americans had something to do with like the dismissal and getting rid of the Whitlam government? Wouldn't these guys really be upset that it's like they deposed a democratically elected government? How could they? A foreign government? Let's kick out the American ambassador. Actually, that's not far enough. Let's tear up the ANZUS Treaty and declare war on the US. Eh? They seem to be very upset by somebody interfering in another country's affairs. Eh? That's where they draw the line. Eh? Let's just take a minute to realize this. Do you understand? A foreign country and an agency, a primary agency of a foreign country would interfere, meddle in our sovereignty? This is outrageous. FJ pointed out the futility of nuclear energy a long time ago. It won't be ready for a long time, if ever. It's only used for security posturing, having a big stick out of fear. So that's it. Mr. Abbott is an insecure cuck. Oh my God. Oh my God, the kebab store. It has Iranian agents, bruz. So good. Oh man. Do those nuclear reactors that all the experts agreed? Oh wait, I read that before. All right. They were very offended that anyone would destroy the rules-based order agreed to by UN nations and would interfere in other people's affairs. We're very upset by that. Remember that. Ah, yes, now he's parroting the ASIO report that was likely from Mossad to push this nonsense story. Does anyone except approved individuals get to see this report, or we are not allowed to? Yeah, they're singing the same tune, which is interesting, right? Because this is the exact same tune that Albo was saying. Oh, we've got it from... report from ASIO, they've come out with this report just out of the blue that Iran is a problem. We didn't really talk about this before, but that shit that's been happening in the country? Well, that was actually Iran. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with Iran. So they're all singing off the same song sheet. Conservative and progressive, left, right, Labour, Liberal, whatever you want to talk about. They're all singing off the same song sheet. It was ASIO, man. It was the goddamn technocrats. They said we should kick out the Iranians, and we did it. cattle grazing for beef production is the leading cause of deforestation in Australia, as forests and bushland are bulldozed to make way for vast cow paddocks. There you go. There you go. And like there, you can see it. You can see how it scarred the land. Just look at aerial photos and stuff like that. Like beautiful looking bushland is just like carved out in an orthogonal manner and just left over. There's just the remnants of vast bushland everywhere in little pockets where it's too hard to forest, I guess. Or maybe on sloping sites and things like that. Yeah, the famed Asia report came out of nowhere just in time for us to announce that we're going to accept Palestinian statehood. And now, all of a sudden, we have to kick the Iranians out. The rules-based order, as Ben Norton points out, is where the US makes the rules and orders everyone around.
And that says something really pretty shocking about the nature of the Iranian regime. And it certainly should cause people who are maybe concerned about Israel overreacting to its challenges to rethink exactly what is Israel's predicament, because Israel is faced not only with an Iran which has recently launched hundreds, if not thousands, of missiles at them, but with various Iranian proxies, whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon, whether it's Hamas in Gaza, whether it's the Houthis in Yemen, various Iranian proxies which are all bent on the absolute destruction, the complete annihilation of the Jewish state and all of the Jewish people who live there. So a regime...
I really hate it
which is
when people say it's a Jewish state. Like, it's so fucking annoying. Like, there are no Jewish people that live anywhere else in the world, and this is the state of the Jews. So, like, you can only really be Jewish if you're associated with Israel. If I was Jewish, that would fucking infuriate me. Like, honestly. Just let me know how deep Pine Gap goes and what kind of fossil you're hiding in there. UFOs you're hiding in there. Yeah, interesting.
Prepared to sponsor terrorism against us, many, many, many thousands of miles away, a country which has never done anything to harm the people of Iran, which has never been particularly vocal in opposition to the current Iranian regime. The fact that they're prepared to do this
it doesn't make sense, does it?
What does this say about the ferocity and the fanaticism of their campaign against the little Satan, which is what they call Israel, and the great Satan, which is what they call the United States, and really against Western civilization more generally? So I think it's been an important wake-up call to Australians about the real nature of apocalyptic Islamism, which is bent on the recreation of a caliphate, and for that to happen, plainly, hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people would be dead. So I hope that the scales have fallen from some Australians' eyes, and I hope that this will play a part in alerting people to the perils of these times. I mean, we've had it very good for a very long time in this country. Since 1945, we have been largely untouched by serious conflict. Yes, there have been some foreign wars, but they haven't engaged the Australian people the way earlier conflicts did. And we can't assume that the benign, even blessed times that we've enjoyed for the last several decades will continue forever.
And you've made this point a number of times, which is the challenge to Western civilization is Russia, China and Iran in terms of the axis that they have developed. Do you think that this is sort of a one-off situation, or do you think there's something more happening in terms of coordination between those three entities, or what's your sort of take on that?
I don't think there's any fundamental solidarity between the three. all that unites them is a hatred of the West and a desire to overturn the Pax Americana, which has given us, on balance, such a benign world for 7 decades or more. But they are intensely opportunistic.
Benign for who?
And obviously, each in its own way is pushing its objectives. And while countries like Israel or the United States or the more important European allies are distracted, well, then advantage will be taken of them in other places. And this is why, notwithstanding any unhappiness that we might have with the current occupant of the White House, it's important that we strengthen the US alliance, and it's also important that we strengthen our own national resilience, and in particular our own armed forces, because we just can't count on the benign, even blessed world that we've known for these last 7 decades to continue indefinitely. Certainly it won't continue unless we remain prepared to defend the freedom that we have enjoyed.
The other protest that we had a couple of weeks ago, the pro-Palestine protest that took place on
This will be good.
Sydney.
Hey? This will be good. Nope, Australians on the right and the left want nothing to do with Israel. Hit the Gen Zs coming up. Within 10 years, all support for the real will be gone. Is that a bad thing, Abbott? The rules-based order... No, I read that before. In light of Albo's comments about Iran, it sounds like Israel is paying Abbott for this crap. Like paying him off to say this specific stuff. Because they basically have the same narrative, though. They're both basically just like, ASIO came out with a report. We better just do whatever ASIO says, right? ASIO. All of a sudden the reports come out. Thank God.
Our bridge, there was at least one individual there holding up a picture, a framed picture of the Ayatollah of Iran, which I think is quite an extraordinary thing, given not just these recent issues, but all of the horrific things done in that regime. And I'm not going to say they're all of that nature, but to have that in our country, I thought I was really taken aback by those images.
Yeah. No words about how upset they were seeing neo-Nazis take to Parliament House in Victoria, take centre stage, and then go on the offensive and start attacking people. No. It's when people put up pictures of Iranian leaders who try to help support Palestinian liberation, which makes more sense, I would say, in the context of a pro-Palestinian march, which is looking to support the liberation of the people of Palestine. No anger, though, at the neo-Nazis that rocked up to March for Australia protests. No. Let's just get angry at that one dude that was holding a sign. So good. This is exactly the Sky News talking points. They must all get the same conversation and spread it around. Eh? I see a connection going on here. We're doing Sky News Watch now. We're doing the IPA. We've got Far Right Fridays. It's interesting. It's interesting to see how different psychologies work. It's very interesting.
Look, I think a lot of the pro-Palestine protesters are genuinely concerned at the civilian casualties of Israel's just war. What I think they're neglecting is the fact that the war would end instantly if Hamas would release its living hostages.
I don't know
and
about that.
If Hamas...
Is that true? Where did he get that claim from? That they'll release the hostages and Israel will be like, oh, fuck, we're sorry we made such a mess. Here, let us help you clean up. Would you like some assistance?
Would meaningfully commit to peaceful coexistence with an Israel behind secure borders. Now, it's not Israel which is fundamentally responsible for the mayhem in Gaza. It's Hamas which is implacably committed to Israel's destruction and is using its own people as human shields. And I think we have to use our heads more, our minds more, and our emotions less when it comes to thinking about.
Netanyahu's literally said like multiple times that they want to wipe out the people from Gaza. They want to cleanse the earth of them. They're gone. They're done. It's ours now. Get over it. Like he's so upset about Hamas saying that about Israel. Like, where's the consistency? Honestly, far out. It's difficult. It's difficult. This guy, yeah, I know, right? This guy. Getting a good lesson in Australian politicians. Yeah, this is Abbott, one of our more popular PMs. Everybody loves Abbott. I bet you everyone in this stream loves Abbott. APAC at work. I know, right?
Some of these conflicts.
All right, Tony, thank you for the
Yeah,
observations and chat. We'll leave it there for this week, and we'll catch up again in about a fortnight.
I'm looking forward to that, Dan.
Oh, in a fortnight. Hey, we could make this a fortnightly thing. I know everyone in the stream is getting pretty wet about that idea. Just try to hold yourselves back a little bit. Okay, calm down. That's a lie. You would have to not know anything about the G word to have Abbott's view unironically seriously. Yes. And they did for years. The press tried actively for these views to be a common. Yes, I know, right? Like they say it all the time. He says it all the time. They want to wipe the earth with them. Gone. And if you're so upset about Hamas saying you're using rhetoric like that, my God, you must be furious about what Israel's really up to. And it's not even it's not even hard. You don't need an ASIO report to find that one out. You could find out on your lonesome there, Tony Abbott. You don't need to talk to Dan from the IPA about that one. Nope. Not that one. All right, let's go. All right, so I'm not sure if everyone's across it. People are pretty across this type of stuff, but I want to look into this because I'm interested. But the Moroccans and the Madagascans have been going hard and protesting in what is starting to be known as the Gen Z revolutions of the 2025s, of the mid-20s. And they're starting to take hold. Now, I can't help, because of Brian at New Atlas, every time I see someone protesting now, I'm just like, haha, the US did it. This is US intervention and soft power through the National Endowment for Democracy. I can't help but think that. And it's all thanks to you, Avalava. But like, I'm not sure if you're across it, but let's just get... I try to anyway with these things. I try to take people that are outside of like the Western bubble. And so like I've gone to India and tried to find a source there. So I don't know how biased this is, but at least it's not Western. So let's have a look at how the Indians see the protests that are happening in Madagascar and Morocco. Now they'd obviously have some level of reservation about any type of Gen Z process, knowing that Nepal's just happened literally on their doorstep, and they'd be pretty upset about that. So I'm assuming they wouldn't be wanting to advocate for the Gen Z revolutions and protests that are happening. And so they might look at this type of stuff critically. Yeah, Madagascar and Morocco are having the same kind of events that we've just witnessed in Nepal and Indonesia, and to a certain extent, the Philippines. I don't want to call it the exact same style because the Filipinos have been kind of agitated for a while now on various issues, and there seems to be specifically in relation to flood mitigation measures that were promised to the country, but like got embroiled with corruption allegations. Whereas like Nepal and Indonesia really seem to be about this sentiment coming from young people that they were they were witnessing corrupt regimes and nepotism and political establishments that just have absolutely no care for the prospects of the future and upcoming generations. And so it seems like Madagascar and Morocco are very much of that ilk as opposed to the Filipino one. So let's have a look to see. I'll be off. Going to do some archery. Good stream. Thank you very much, Wings of Cheese, and welcome. And thanks for hanging out to watch Tony Abbott. I'm sure you loved it. So, yeah, let's have a look at see what the story is with Madagascar and Morocco. So we have technology at our fingertips. Spreading false information at this point is just willful ignorance or blatant lies. Yeah. And definitely with someone as informed as that, right? Like, definitely. Good for Morocco. Maybe they can stop their G side against the Western Sahara once they finish. There you go. Yeah, stop the destabilization. But, like, is this part of the destabilization effort then? From US imperialists, indirectly Western imperialist forces? We'll find out. Let's have a listen to see what's going on there, shall we?
Now, across the globe, young people are rising up like never before. From hashtags to street marches, Gen Z is organizing, mobilizing, and uniting across borders to demand change. From Madagascar to Morocco and Nepal to Kenya, youths are making their mark through a powerful wave of protests for change. In Madagascar, deadly demonstrations erupted over worsening power outages and water shortages, basic services that the government has struggled to provide. The protests are testing the country's leadership, whose hold on power is once again under pressure. Elsewhere in Africa, Morocco is investing billions of dollars in football infrastructure as it prepares to co-host the 2030 FIFA World Cup. Now, this includes a massive new stadium and renovation of several existing venues. But this spending has sparked public protests, with many young people arguing that their more urgent needs, such as healthcare and education, are being ignored in favor of sports facilities. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports on a generation that refuses to stay silent.
In recent months, a trend of youth taking to the streets in Global South has been observed. This wave of youth-led protests has shook governments to their core and toppled leaders in some countries. Sri Lanka in 2022. Bangladesh in 2024.
Do you reckon this is all part of the same thing? Because the Bangladeshi one was huge. They were going hard, the Bangladeshis. And that was associated with the Marxist movement too. I think it was like they have a Marxist-Leninist party that actually took power like a decade or two ago. And then, like, I don't know, there was like kind of a violent altercation between them and the existing political establishment. They've gone away and then they've come back. But they've come back like legitimately this time. So I wonder if that was part of the destabilization effort that Brian would say, hey, follow the money, follow the money. Some things never change, just like how Rome used gladiators and sports to distract the populace. Yeah, I know. Hey? And it's not working. Like, they don't care about the new stadiums and the infrastructure required for the beautiful game. Hey? They want people to spend. They want the government to spend money on them and their futures. Hey? You gotta follow the money. Gotta follow the money. Thanks, Brian. He's like tattooed into my fucking head now.
In May 2025. Kenya in June. Indonesia in August, and Nepal in September. A new name has been added to this list: Madagascar. Madagascar is an island nation located off the eastern coast of Africa. On 29th of September, President Andry Rajoelina dissolved the government following protests over issues of electricity and water shortages. Unrest has gripped the capital Antananarivo for days. The government imposed dusk to dawn curfews in a bid to control the chaos, but large crowds continued to flood the streets. Police used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse the demonstrators. The United Nations said that the violence claimed nearly 24 lives and injured more than 100. In a nationally televised address, President Rajoelina acknowledged the outrage of young people. He said, and I quote, "I understand the anger, the sadness and the difficulties caused by power cuts and water supply problem. I heard the call. I felt the suffering. I understood the impact on daily life." Unquote. He then dismissed the Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers. He said that interim ministers will remain in post until a new government is appointed in the coming days.
Pursuant to Article 54 of the Constitution, I have decided to terminate the functions of the Prime Minister and the government. While waiting for the formation of the new government, those in place will ensure the interim. During the next 3 days, we will receive the names of the Prime Minister. Then after his appointment, a deadline will be given to him for the composition of the government.
President Rajoelina pledged to find solutions to the country's crisis and expressed readiness to meet the young activists leading the demonstrations. But it did not satisfy the protesters, who drew inspiration from Gen Z demonstrations in Nepal and Kenya. Protesters said that the sacking of the government was small victory. They wanted change, the rule of law, and justice for all.
C'est notre objectif et pour y atteindre, je pense.
I think that this movement is the way to change the system. We need to rearrange things because it's this system that makes it easier for power to be monopolized by a certain group of people who only care about their own well-being.
See, look, you got to follow the money. I get it. But like, damn, to be honest, I always thought of Madagascar as some sort of like tropical jungle island. Yeah, thanks to some Hollywood, Hollywood fantasy stuff going on there. Yeah, I know. I agree. I know what you're saying. I always thought of that too. But like, these are real material concerns that they have. They have real problems with the way that their government is working, the way that they have no prospects, they have no future. They've got real material concerns based in the economics of it. Like there's nothing for them. They feel like they have zero opportunity. And so, okay, that the US government comes in with all of its dollars and its incredible intelligence services and networks and then stokes the flames. But like, does that degrade or take away from the fact that these people have real concerns? Like, does that matter that these people are being prodded by the US to revolt? And like, if it leads to some type of substantive change, because I guess the US wouldn't interfere if they believed that it was going to amount to some type of, social revolution or something like that. But then they just kind of back some type of, I don't know, dictator or some type of military coup that would like take power back once they destabilize the country based on things that people truly are concerned about. Like, these aren't just coming from nowhere. These people obviously have these grievances and these sentiments, and so they're channeling those existing grievances and making it work for American foreign policy, potentially destabilizing certain regions around the world. You got to follow the money. I wonder who organized the protest. These things require organization. The concerns they have may actually be materially present, though they're being weaponized. But weaponizing someone's material concerns are a problem, though. They still have concerns. The power of modern technology, the exploited working man from third world countries are realizing that the materialistic hardship is political choice. Yes, and so they are fighting against the machine for all intents and purposes. What me and Avalava are arguing about here, Voltaire, is there is this. We call it it's the Brian theory of everything. That there is always, whenever you see a protest like this, and it's no coincidence that all of this is happening at the moment. It's all dubbed the Gen Z protest, and it's being happily reported on by the Western media is because it all stems from American interventionism, and hence why I found something from India, because I don't think they're part of the Western machine, and might not even be part of the Western manufacturing consent machine. So like I was like seeing maybe they might have a different opinion on this, and that's why they're covering it. But the Brian theory of everything is that all of these protests, whether they're coming from Gen Z people or not that have real concerns, they only exist and they're able to manifest into like civil unrest is because the Americans have been using things like certain soft power organizations, NGOs that get out there and incite civil unrest, or like train people, like organizations train groups of people to be like, hey, this is how we protest, this is how we get together and start like topple a government basically, or like overthrow a government or call for political change, and then everybody jumps on board. But there is an organized core. It's not just spontaneous, organic. This Brian's theory of everything is like organics. It doesn't exist. There's no form of organic representation. It's not real. If you believe in organic movements, you're kidding yourself. It's always concentrated somehow, well, legitimately or not. It has to be organized somehow. And so like that's the Brian theory of everything. Yeah, I definitely don't want to dismiss their concerns. Okay, yeah, because I always feel like, you know, when that the guy from Nepal came on and we were just like, yeah, well, we just watched something and the US intervened. Like he visibly through the screen, obviously, was offended. He was like, no, this has got nothing to do with other people. This is us. This is our problems. This is our fight kind of thing. I was like, just telling you what we heard kind of thing. So like these people obviously have concerns and they're upset about stuff. They're pissed off. And so, I don't know. If someone like the US is stoking the flames of their discontent, does that make it a bad thing? Undeniably. Or is it how the US then further responds to that? So let's just say these Gen Z people do reshape the country and bring in some type of social revolution, and they rewrite the constitution and get rid of corruption in their government. You know, is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing? People of influence will use real working men's problems to gain support for gaining their own political power. The leaders that try and represent the working man might have ulterior motives. Yes. And so like I said, like if this turns into some social revolution and they get rid of corruption and somehow, you know, bring in some type of political party or group or situation where they feel like they're actually being looked after and it's not just some pyramid scheme, is that okay? Like, is that okay then to have had the US interfere in their politics through soft power and money, like funding or like dissent? Is that okay then for the US to have done that? I think Brian was saying that there are organized protests that come from legitimate grassroots movements that derive. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like there are legitimate versions, but like don't think that anything's organic and just people just get up one day because their iPhone is going off about like, you know, nepotism and stuff like that, and then they all take to the streets. It comes from some form of organization, whether it's legitimate or not, but it's always organized. There's no spontaneous uprisings. So like, yes. But like they all derive from material concerns. And so all I'm saying is just if the US intervenes in somebody else, just because they're the US and they're intervening and they're stoking the flames of discontent, just because they've intervened, does that delegitimize the movement in all cases? If it leads to some type of political change and there's no further intervention, then like, hey, thanks for the money then, Brian. His point is that there are significant interests who orchestrate these things, particularly in a way to make it look natural. Okay. Fair enough. So like it can still be a good outcome for these people. Right? Like Nepal, for instance, the lady, what was her name that came in at the end? Kaki something. Like if she looks after the nation well in a caretaker mode as their mother figure, and then a new government comes in and like gets rid of the corruption that was plaguing their society, who cares if it was a US backed intervention, if it's a good result, right? I guess like the people that died would probably care. But like if they get some type of political change from it. I'm just trying to think because like geopolitically, the only bonus for American interest in that regard is just general destabilization. If they just generally destabilize the area around China, then China always looking over their shoulder and not concentrating on the Americans, I guess. That's the point of it. It's interesting. So much to think about. My God. To be honest, nothing in this world is 100% morally good. It's all about trying to minimize the amount of harm. Nothing will be perfect, but any form of progress is good, in my opinion. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, nothing is 100% morally good. I think that's actually a really good point, you know. But like if they get a better outcome for these people, yes, that's the main thing. Yeah. All right.
A chorus of protesters now called for the president's resignation. On 30th of September, youths marched in the capital, waving placards with messages such as "We need water, we need electricity, Rajoelina out." The protesters adopted a pirate flag from the Japanese anime series One Piece as their rallying symbol. This logo was also used recently by youth-led anti-regime protests in Nepal, Indonesia, the Philippines and France.
For us, the Gen Z and Katsu University, President Rajolina's response is not acceptable. Therefore, the dismissal of the government is not enough for us. We demand the resignation of the president and the cleaning up of the National Assembly, which is from the same party as the president.
Here's how it all started. The demonstrations erupted on Thursday in response to worsening power and water shortages, alongside deepening frustration over poverty. Initially peaceful, the marches in the capital descended into violent clashes, with the police looting and arson. The homes of politicians close to the president were attacked. In a matter of days, the unrest had spread to 8 other cities. Explosions and screams rang out as large police contingents backed by armored vehicles dispersed crowds with tear gas and rubber bullets, while smoke rose from fires lit in the streets. Organizers who mobilized support through social media said that they had been inspired by youth-led movements in Kenya, Nepal and Morocco. Demonstrators even adopted a protest flag, which was first used in Nepal earlier this month.
They say we are a TikTok generation, a generation of idiots. And when we rise up, they don't let us speak out about the country's problems.
The student protesters were all dressed in black in line with a call on social media to mourn those killed. In the main, frustration reached boiling point over poverty and failing basic services. Madagascar is the leading producer of vanilla and has natural resources in farming, forestry, fishing and minerals. But it remains one of the poorest countries in the world. According to World Bank, more than 75% of its 28 million people live below the international poverty line of $3 per person per day. Blackouts and water shortages are not new to the island, but their increasing frequency and duration have severely disrupted daily life. Some areas were without electricity for more than 12 hours, and people's frustrations spilled into the streets.
Mon ras-le-bol et le ras-le-bol de tous les Malgaches.
I'm fed up, and so are all the Malagasy people, with power cuts, water cuts, and above all the confiscation of rights and power in the hands of a certain population. I think that, as citizens, we have a duty to demonstrate.
D'une certaine frange de la population.
The demonstrations might be the hand.
I used Grammarly. Okay, fucking Grammarly fucks me over a lot. Okay. Okay, that's your spell checker. Of course, the outcome can be good, but this outcome requires direction, organization, and being informed. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Handiwork of Gen Z, but the grievances have been decades in the making. Since gaining independence from France in 1960, Madagascar has been rocked by multiple uprisings. Andry Rajoelina, a former mayor of Antananarivo, came to power on the back of a coup that ousted the country's president at the time. He rose to prominence by leading a wave of rallies against the then government. Those protests channeled growing public anger towards what we saw as an increasingly authoritarian regime and ultimately forced the president to step down. Rajoelina, backed by young people, seized power and became Africa's youngest president.
It looks
Ironically,
young
for a
as.
man who rose to power on the back of a youth protest, it is young people who are seeking his ouster today. The same people who once rallied behind him are now filling the Antananarivo streets, demanding his resignation. After not contesting the 2013 election because of international pressure, Rajoelina was voted back into office in 2018 and re-elected in 2023 in contested elections boycotted by the opposition. After the latest protest broke out, he invited applications for a new prime minister. An appeal by him urging candidates for ministerial posts to send in a curriculum vitae by mail or by LinkedIn was widely mocked on social media. This trend of youth-led protests is not unique to Madagascar. In northwestern Africa, a similar violent Gen Z protest erupted in Morocco. Demonstrators clashed with police in 11 different cities over corruption and the government's misplaced priorities. Hundreds of young Moroccans took to the streets and criticized the government for spending heavily on international sporting events while neglecting health and education. Protesters linked the struggling health system to preparations for the 2030 FIFA World Cup. They were shouting slogans such as "Stadiums are here, but where are the hospitals?" Morocco is building at least 3 new stadiums and renovating or expanding at least half a dozen others. It will also host the Africa Cup of Nations later this year. Unlike past protests led by unions or political parties, the rallies in Moroccan cities were largely organized.
Hey, it's got Brian's fucking trademark all over it. Other protests were organized by unions, so like organized groups, but this one was all done on Discord. Hey, Brian's gonna have a field day with this shit. He's gonna be overworked. I feel sorry for Brian. He's gonna be way too overworked.
Through social media platforms such as TikTok and gaming app Discord. The protest won additional backing from Morocco's star goalkeeper Yacine Bono and its most famous rapper El Grande Toto. But two groups, Gen Z 21 and Morocco Youth Voices, urged peaceful and civilized protest and responsible debate, even as many supporters voiced more militant demands.
Young people are demanding schools and hospitals. What they are asking for is not impossible. These are necessities in Morocco. How can the authorities not understand this? Where is the government in all this? Where is the head of the Moroccan government, who does nothing but talk? Young people have demands that are vital for Morocco, particularly in terms of hospitals and schools.
We don't want football or anything.
Like, she was pissed off. Hey, that's some passion.
Yes. If football had been good for us, it would have been introduced long ago and would have benefited young people. We want health. Our parents are suffering. Protests in Morocco have historically focused on regional inequalities and government priorities. But the most recent protests reflected a nationwide anger. The unrest swelled after 8 women died giving birth in a public hospital at Agadir in capital Rabat. The 2023 World Health Organization data showed that Morocco had only 7.7 medical professionals per 10,000 inhabitants and far fewer in certain regions, including Agadir. In Morocco, people born between 1995 and 2010 make up the largest share of the population, and the weekend demonstrations were referred to as Gen Z protests. Morocco's youth have also drawn inspiration from Nepal, where youth-led protests have channeled widespread anger over the lack of opportunities, corruption and nepotism. The protests unfolding in Madagascar and Morocco raise a serious question. When governments fail to respond to the needs of their people, especially the youth, what other choice do citizens have but to take to the streets? These movements have not only channeled policies, but the very legitimacy of the government behind them. For Gen Z, protest is no longer just an act of defiance. It's a form of participation, a demand to be heard in societies that too often ignore them. Whether governments see this as a threat or a wake-up call may well shape the political future of entire nations. Aman Kumar Himanshu reports for DD India.
Interesting. There you go. I guess, yeah, that is a good sentiment to end on, isn't it? Whether this is just them voicing their opinion, and whether or not it actually leads to any acceptance or acknowledgement via the government of their true concerns. And, you know, if that manifests into some type of change, I guess that time will tell. which was the lesson there. Time will tell. I guess we will find out. Now, we are going to have a quick break, and then we're going to come back with some Rome Total War gameplay and some live chats. So if you're hanging around, then please do. And like we can continue chatting if you're interested. If not, thank you for your interactions today. We've covered some crazy territory from France to Australia and Papua New Guinea, to Madagascar and Morocco. Apparently, we've gone quite a way around the world today. But yes, thank you everyone for your interactions. Laugh Jeff in the house, Avalava Windy Cheese, Ninja Nurse, and Dr. Nathan. 4S was in there for a little bit. Squeebalicious too. I've had a few people coming in and out, so thank you. 4AS. Yeah, it's Rome Total War. Some fictional imperialism. Yeah, we're going to be working our ways through the modes of production. Starting with the ancient mode and going through. I wish there was a game where you could play the primitive mode of production, primitive communism. I'd do that. For sure. Let's start there and work up through all the different modes of production. But yeah, stick around if you are interested in having a chat. Yeah, but I want to spend some time in each one. I know what you mean, though. Yeah, we could definitely do Empire Earth, actually. And just I could do one at a time. Go through each epoch one at a time. But yes, thank you for your interactions. And if you're sticking around, we will be right back. Okay. There won't be any actual afters today. I do apologize. Can you hear me? Is the mic on? Yeah, it is. I've actually got to bounce now. Something's come up and I got to go. I'm trying to find an image that pointed out the backgrounds of the new pollies in Nepal. I think they're all backed in one way or another by the US. But that's the thing, that woman, what was her name? Kaki, was supposed to be independent. Also, Tropico 6 stream when? Hello. Join the Twitch side, you YouTube people. We need to hit 50. Yeah, we're close to 50 as well. Yeah, Tropico 6, I haven't had a chance to look into it yet. I do apologize. But yeah, I've got to bounce. So yes, I'm gonna have to call the stream here. I'm sorry, everyone. But yeah, thank you. We'll be back on the same deal tomorrow. Yeah, bouncy. I gotta bounce. But yes, thank you for all of your interactions, and we'll do a catch up afters tomorrow to make up for it. But yes, thank you, and until next time, you know the story. I am, you are, we are a mystery. I'll see you on the morrow. Thanks for everyone today. Thanks for all of your input today. Thank you. Cheers.